What's up, everyone? Welcome to Grinders Live. It's NFL Week 18. I'm your host, TJ Zwarych, coming to you early this morning with a pretty terrible cold. Didn't get much sleep, but who cares? It's NFL Week 18 time. Hopefully these games and some DFS will energize me a little bit. I'm doing a 3-entry max. I'm doing a 20-entry max. Looking forward to today's slate because even though it's wonky, I feel weirdly good about it. Joining me today is my guy, Shiver Me Timbo, TastefulTides, Tim Buell. How you doing today, Tim?
Well, I'm glad that you're feeling good about it because I feel a little bit uneasy about it. Definitely. I mean, we call this the information slate, which is, that's not wrong. It is the information slate, but I mean, there's a ton of information to break down, and there's a ton of kind of wrinkles and I think kind of some confusing spots that could go either way. I think it's an incredibly tough slate. I'm considering making like 5 or 6 teams, which I don't usually do, because I just want to get exposures to certain spots and maybe some lower owned spots that I think that could go off. So I think this is an interesting slate. It is going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be a fun sweat, definitely, for DFS purposes.
Yeah, there's a few spots that are standing out to me as going clearly under-owned, and so I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. It's an even more exciting slate on FanDuel, and I do apologize that I sound funny. My nose is completely stuffed up, but it's an even more fun slate on FanDuel where the night game, Sunday night, is the best game of the day. It should be one of the best games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, this has got to be one of the biggest regular season games possibly ever. You go from having the win, getting home field throughout, to starting off round 1 on the road. I mean, this is a gigantic regular season game. I'm actually gonna play cash on FanDuel this week, because I think I think the FanDuel slate is just so much better because of the addition of that game. I'm really excited to watch that game too. Like, usually I'll bounce back and forth between watching shows and watching football, but I mean, I'm going to be committed to watching that game tonight. I think it's just going to be fantastic. I really hope that game does not disappoint.
And we will be breaking that down from a showdown perspective as well. 6:40 Eastern time today, myself and Chief breaking it down for the showdown show. So make sure you tune in for that one. What 30,000 foot view on the DKN, I guess, FanDuel slate today. FanDuel, obviously, we just love Detroit Vikings. No matter how many lineups you play, you want to make sure you get some exposure to that game.
Yeah.
But DK, it's a little less clear cut. We have Bijan Robinson and Bucky Irving, Michael Carter, Mike Evans, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride. A lot of chalk. But I think there are a lot of solid edges for tournaments as well. So how do you feel about this slate?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be, I think, starting right off the top, talking about Joshua Dobbs. I mean, absolutely fantastic price, absolutely fantastic play if you're going to be playing cash games. A little bit concerned that he's going to get like super steamed though in like single entry stuff, like higher dollar stuff. A little bit concerned about his ceiling. So I mean, I think that there are different ways that you can go about playing the quarterback position. But I mean, Dobbs is the clear points per dollar darling. He's going to be the clear cash game darling. But I mean, I think there's other quarterbacks that you can play. We've got to talk about Baker Mayfield. Obviously, that game is gigantic from a real life perspective. It's a must win spot for Tampa Bay. We've seen Baker Mayfield put up tremendous ceilings. So I think that he is somebody that has to be considered. I mean, we currently have Mayfield higher owned than Dobbs. I'm just a little bit worried that Dobbs ends up getting steamed and those actually end up flipping. Because if they end up flipping, I'm not going to want to play Dobbs as the highest owned quarterback in single entry or large field GPP. And then I really like Joe Flacco this week. I think it's so easy to play the Flacco doubles. I know that Downs disappointed like tremendously last week, but I think that'll just make people shy away from playing him. So I think getting to some Flacco doubles is super interesting. And then Kyler Murray is another one on the other side of that game. I think one way to get leverage on this slate is instead of playing Michael Carter at the running back, you play Murray, and then you play some McBride, and then you play some Gerendo at running back, and then maybe Jennings as well. Just kind of flip the script of that game a little bit. I think is a really awesome way to play GPPs.
Yeah, Kyler Murray and that Arizona offense has just been so disappointing this year, but he is actually projecting as the highest raw point quarterback in the RotoGrinders projections today. I don't fully get that one. That seems a little bit off to me. There's certainly some guys that I like better from a raw points perspective, but I'm going to be underweight. I might play him in one of my 20 lineups. I'm not going to get to him in my 3-entry max. In my 3-entry max, I am going to do a Baker stack, and I am going to do a Dobbs one. But my way of getting different for that is, I think for Dobbs, everybody's going to be playing either him naked or with Jennings. And I want to double stack him. I'm going to play him with Jennings and Pearsall. Pearsall without Deebo Samuel projecting for sub 5% after his best game of the season. Don't really get that one. And so I really like Pearsall in this spot, either as a one-off or with your Josh Dobbs teams. And then for Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans and Bucky Irving are going to be chalk, but that's kind of it for the rest of Tampa Bay. Why does all of a sudden, after being super popular last week, nobody like Jalen McMillan this week? He's only $5,100. He hasn't been priced up that much. He's got a touchdown in how many straight games now? Why can't I find the touchdown tab here? Where is receiving touchdown? Either way, he's getting a lot of touchdowns. And so like 5, 7, 6, 7 targets in his last 4 weeks. I really like Jalen McMillan in this spot. So when I'm playing Baker, and Mr. Richards asking that in the chat, would you play Baker as chalk? Yes, but I'm going to full on onslaught that game. I think Tampa could score 40, 50 points today. And so I'm going to play Baker. I'm going to play Bucky. I'm going to play Evans. I'm going to play McMillan. And I'm going to play Durham or Culp as well. And I'm going to do the quad stack with Baker Mayfield today.
We've seen that
work stack. We've seen that work as recent as last week. Like, if you played Baker last week, he went off. But if you didn't quad stack, you were behind everybody who did. And so I'm going to run it back with that one again. I think they could be putting up 40 points. And while everybody's... We're going to touch on this more when we get to receiver. But everybody is flocking to Mike Evans today. I think we can use these other pieces for Tampa Bay, and you can include Evans in your onslaught, but I even think you could fade him because he's going to be super highly owned today. And the reason why everybody's going to him is incentives. Get that 1,000-yard season. We got to make sure we get there. They got to win. It's the perfect spot for him to get there. Well, for him to get his 1,000-yard season and all of his incentives, he needs like 5 receptions and 85 yards. Well, he's 8K. He would be needing that anyways. Like 5 receptions, 85 yards. That does nothing for us. We need him to have 8 receptions for 120 and a touchdown. And so while that absolutely is on the table for Mike Evans, with that type of ownership, that's the only way he beats you today. Is like he needs the ceiling of all ceilings, which has nothing to do with incentives. It's not like he needs 10 catches for 150 yards to get there.
Right. No, I think that's a reasonable take. Yeah, McMillan's had at least 1 touchdown in each of the last 4 games. Six total in his last 4 games. Targets of 7, 6, 7, and 5 in those last 4 games. So, yeah, I mean, McMillan has definitely been red hot when it comes to receiving touchdowns. Yeah, I don't mind getting different with those Buccaneer stacks of GPPs by leaving off Evans. I've been kind of conflicted about what I want to do with Evans myself. I'm not really I don't really care too much about these incentives, but this is a $3 million one. I mean, I know these guys are millionaires, but I mean, this isn't like Pollard's like $200,000 one or some of these other ones that are like relatively small. But I mean, this is a pretty hefty incentive. So, but you're right. If he hits 585, that's not enough to win you a GPP, especially at that ownership and his price. So I don't mind the fade. He is probably Mike Evans is probably the player that I am struggling with the most about what I want to do with him, because it's such a tricky spot, because I really just want to play Bucky. That's really what I want to do, and just have that be my Buccaneers exposure. But yeah, I mean, because I feel like if I play Evans, then I really should be playing Baker too, and just hope that game goes off and like overstack like what you were talking about.
Yeah, that's how I'm going about it. I'm certainly not saying full fade Evans today. Play him in 0% of your lineups. I'm just saying I think there is a route to fading him, and I would prioritize Bucky Irving over Mike Evans if I'm choosing one Tampa Bay player. I'm with you on that one. I think Bucky Irving is the guy that we want in this spot if we're only choosing one. And then I think if you want to get two pieces of that game, or if you're stacking at Mayfield, like McMillan is really the guy who provides ultimate tournament leverage off of Mike Evans today. Like, we're projecting 3% ownership for Jalen McMillan right now. And so that's just an incredible tournament play in my opinion. So I'm all aboard the Baker as chalk. I'm just going to full on onslaught. Minimum 3, but probably 4 different Bucks players with him. Evans, McMillan, Durham, or Culp. Heck, maybe you want to try both because they're both so cheap. And you do that in an maybe I'm going to do that in a tournament lineup. Fade Evans and go like Bucky, both tight ends, and McMillan, and spend up everywhere else. But I'm probably going to have Evans in like all but one of my Baker teams. And then I don't think I'm going to go there without. I do think it's like a super interesting idea to do like a Baker 3-man stack without Evans, and you just do Brian Thomas Jr. instead. And you hope Brian Thomas Jr. outscores Evans. And even if Evans puts up 25, if BTJ puts up 30, you still win in that spot. And so that's, I think, a super interesting way to go about it as well. Again, I'm not saying play 0% Evans. I think Evans is going to have a very good game. I'm just saying we don't necessarily need to only look at the incentives for the reason, because he can hit those incentives and still not pay off his price. He needs to far surpass those incentives to pay off his price. He's 8K with 30% ownership. He needs to have a ceiling game to make that worthwhile. My stack that I think is my favorite for tournaments, I mentioned in my 2 of my 3 lineups, I'm going to do Dobbs double stack. I'm going to do Baker onslaught, probably the quad stack. And then Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders is my other favorite spot on the slate. Are you gonna
pair him with Ertz or McClaren, or are you just gonna play him naked?
I'm probably gonna do a triple. With him. I think I kind of feel like the ownership is fake, because I feel like the people are going to look at this low projected ownership for Jaden Daniels around the industry and want to play him, and so he's going to get steamed up at the last second. But I've loved this guy all week. I don't understand why he's projected for 5% ownership. He should be double digit. They're playing to win. They're not resting their starters. They're playing to win. Their coach has said it all week, and we saw that with Detroit last week. But even if we don't trust the coach speak, if they win, they play the Rams. If they lose, they play the Eagles. Now, assuming Jalen Hurts is going to be back, you would way rather play the Rams than the Eagles, whose defense has been by far the best defense in the league over the second half of the season. And so they are playing to win this game. They don't want the Eagles in the first round. And so I love getting to some Jaden Daniels today. I'll pair him with McClaren, whose price has gone down. But my favorite route to go with him is actually his cheap receivers. Olamide Zaccheaus has just been getting a ton of targets over the last couple of weeks, 8 and 10 his last 2 weeks. The wide receiver 2 for Washington has been receiving more targets than McLaurin basically for the whole second half of the season. except for a couple games. I love pairing him with Zacchaeus. I love pairing him with Zach Ertz. I think you can play De'Ami Brown, and then McClaren is priced cheaper than he has been over the last few weeks. So I'm going to pick at least 2 of those guys in every Daniels lineup, but I'm thinking of even going 3.
Yeah, I don't think I could get to a Jaden triple just because a lot of his fantasy production comes from him rushing the ball. So I don't think that I would do triples. That's just my opinion. Yeah, Dan Quinn has been adamant.
Let me devil's advocate with you for a second.
Yep.
3 passing touchdowns last game, 5 the game before, 2 the game before, 3 the game before that. You can get the production when McLaurin's the only expensive one.
True. Yeah, I mean, all the other ones are really, really cheap.
If he tight end's terrible today outside of Brock Bowers and
tight end is pretty tough today.
And McBride. So you go Ertz because he's cheap. You go Zacchaeus because he's cheap. There's 2 already. And then it's I think De'Ami Brown because he's only 3,600. It's another one where it's like if he catches 1 touchdown or 4 passes for 40 yards, you are super in a great spot for that price.
Are you gonna if you play a triple, are you gonna run back with any Cowboy?
I don't think you need to, but I think you could. The reason I don't want to is because Trey Lance is expected to play a bunch of snaps in this game, and I don't really want any of their pass catchers with Lance.
I was thinking Rico. They released Zeke.
Yeah. How expensive is he? 5,800?
5,800.
Yeah, I think I'd rather play him than like Tyrone Tracy or something like that in that range. But I would think I would rather go Isaac Guerendo or Blake Corum right above or below.
Yeah, I don't even mind Rico that much today. Like in a larger field setting, like he has been pretty efficient all season. But then Zeke will come in and snipe the TDs, which is not going to happen today. So I think like if you want that game to like stay competitive, I think Rico's a pretty good bring back play. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of thinking about Rico anyway. I think his price is really good, and we don't have, he doesn't have to worry about Zeke, eating into his production.
I don't really think Zeke was eating too much into the production. Really,
he was at the goal line.
Did Zeke even have any touchdowns this year?
I think so.
2.
I wonder how many carries he had though. Like inside the 5.
1 against the Bucks. Not sure about the Eagles. He only had 2. I'm not too worried about that. But even still, I guess what I do like about your point is if I am going to do the Jaden Daniels triple stack and I need a running back in that range, it absolutely should be Dowdle, because if the triple stack is going to hit, it means Dallas did something. So I think that's a really good point. Shannon in chat says, danger zone for Daniels. What if they are killing the Cowboys by halftime? Daniels doesn't play the whole game. Well, what if any team is killing them by halftime? Their quarterback might not play the whole game. If Tampa is up by 35 at halftime, does Baker play the whole game? If Atlanta is up by 28 at halftime, does Bijan play the whole game? Et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think we really have to worry about that too much. And if they are killing him at halftime, that probably means he's already gotten there. So I'm not too worried about that. That's the case for basically every player on this slate. So that's just week 18. But essentially any week, if you're blowing somebody out, you have to worry about getting pulled early. But typically that means that you have already gotten there. We talked about San Francisco. We've talked about Baker on slots and Jaden Daniels. Who else are some stacks that you like on this slate?
I don't mind Geno Smith. And then there's one quarterback that I really want to talk about, and that's Bo Nix. Bo Nix is playing in a must-win game against the backups for Kansas City. So I think Bo Nix has not really gotten much attention this week. He's projected for right around 5% ownership on DK. He's 6,400. I think he's got a really nice stacking partner with Cortland Sutton. Bo Nix can also rush the ball, so he has a few, a little bit of rushing upside as well. He's kind of if Kyler's going to be this highly owned, I would almost like to split that ownership in half and play Bo Nix in a game that they should win, and they have to win. So motivation is sky high for Denver. And so, and he's just getting no attention this week. So I think Bo Nix is a really, really great play. I think you can play him single entry. I think you can play him in larger field stuff as well.
Agreed 100%. I love Bo Nix in this spot. Straight up, I like him better than Kyler Murray, not even considering ownership. And so when you put ownership in there, I think he's a significantly better play. I love Bo Nix today. I think that's a great call. I wasn't going to have as much interest if the Steelers won last night, but with the Bengals winning, the Broncos really want to win this game. And so I think that is a great play. Maria Donizzi in chat bringing up Justin Herbert, and this is another game that because the Bengals won, the Chargers need to win this for seeding purposes. They want to play Houston in the first round. They do not want to play Baltimore, and so they are playing to win this game. What do you think about Justin Herbert? Personally, I think it's the running back for that team that I'm going to really love today, though.
Yeah, I'm not huge on Herbert. I mean, he is simming pretty well in my initial run of sims. I'm getting him the fourth most out of any quarterback. I'm actually getting a little bit more Herbert than I am Nix. So I mean, he's obviously simming pretty well. So is Lad. And if you play this Chargers game, you do kind of have a lot of like late swap equity. So like if the early games are going your way, you could start late swapping it onto some really, really contrarian pieces. So that is a plus for Herbert. Really though, just for me personally, I think I'm either going to play Geno there or Nix, because we haven't really talked about Geno, because I do like Geno quite a bit.
Yeah, don't think I'm going to get to any Herbert. Maybe I'll play him in one of 20, but not gonna get to Justin Herbert too much, I don't think. I would way rather play J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins is one of my favorite running back plays on the slate. He's got a bunch of incentives lining up. He's not going to win it, but they really want to have him in the running for comeback player of the year, they've talked about. And they're just so impressed with him, and now they need to win, and it's the Raiders. I think J.K. Dobbins is just going to absolutely run all over the Raiders today. I did a bunch of underdog drafts, and I would just load it up, and I got so lucky. I don't know how this happened. I did 8 underdog drafts. The worst pick I got first or second in every single one but one. In 7 of 8, wow. I got first or second, and then the only one I didn't get the first or second pick, I got Brian Thomas as my first round pick. That's awesome. Feeling really good about that, because I have Bucky Irving or Bijan Robinson in every one of these teams, and then on most of them, J.K. Dobbins is going to be the second running back. So I'm really loving those drafts that I did over there. But we're still at quarterback. We'll get to the other running back plays after. I see somebody in chat asking for some tight end plays. Well, we will get there, but we're still at quarterback right now. You talked about Geno Smith that you really like. I really like, and you also mentioned Flacco before. Both of those I think are really strong options because we can stack them up. We know who to stack them with, and they're not that expensive. So Geno, you play him with Metcalf and JSN. Flacco, you pick 2 of Downs, Pittman, and Pierce. Pierce had 9 targets or something last week, and now nobody wants to go back there. I still think he is the de facto wide receiver 3, but Pierce, I think, is a great option. And honestly, Flacco, you're never going to run with him. He's never going to run. And so I don't think it's crazy to go Downs, Pittman, Pierce, run it back with BTJ. Go 3 receivers, 1 on the other side, and you can afford to spend up at all your other positions. You can get an expensive tight end in that scenario. So don't think there's any problem with that. So you got Flacco, you got Geno. One other guy that I want to throw into that tier of guys that I kind of view similarly is Mac Jones in that same game as Flacco. Colts defense has been terrible. Brian Thomas Jr. we know is obviously incredible. And so it is easier to just get your exposure to that offense through him. But I don't think it's crazy to throw in a PJ Washington. Is that right? No, PJ Washington's the NBA player. What's the Parker Washington?
Parker. Yeah.
And make it a double stack.
Yeah, I really don't hate that at all. I was considering Mac Jones today as well. I don't think I'm going to do it. If I made 3 teams, I don't think Mac Jones would quite crack that spot. But I mean, it's a really good matchup. It's a really nice price. He's got a really, really amazing stacking partner. So I mean, I certainly don't hate the play. Right now, I don't know. I think I prefer Geno and I prefer Flacco at very, very similar price points. And I don't think Geno or Flacco are going to get super steamed. Do you think? I mean, I'm not somebody that really knows ball, but I thought Penix looked not very good. I mean, he's got like this. He like winds up to throw the ball. Like he's so slow delivering the ball, because I was considering maybe Penix in this spot, like this amazing spot against Carolina, but I was like, you know what? There's so many quarterbacks in this kind of mid 5K spot or just a little bit higher that I would much prefer playing Penix. So I don't think I can go there, despite the fact that, I mean, this matchup is amazing, because I was thinking like, how can I get leverage off of the super chalky Bijan if I wanted to? And that would be like going Penix in London. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I think that's just too cute.
Shannon in chat bringing up Tanner McKee. I don't think we can play any Tanner McKee in this spot. I think that might be getting a little too cute. But I'm with you. I like the idea of Penix because Bijan Robinson's going to be really highly owned. But Penix is going to be pushing 10% too. Like, I just don't really think I want to get there. With tight end being so weak, I think I don't hate the idea of going the double stack with Pitts and Drake London. You're absolutely playing Drake London if you're playing Michael Penix. But I don't hate, like, Mooney and Ray just haven't been getting near as many targets with Penix as they had been with Cousins. And so I think Pitts is a reasonable second stacking partner alongside Tyler Davis saying, I think we're good on QB. Tyler, we still got 3 more hours of NFL content coming for you. Don't worry, we're going to cover all the positions. We got lots and lots of time here. GPP Final Takes crew still not coming in here for about another hour. We are going to get well through all of the positions and then some. Only other people I'm considering, and I don't think I'm going to get there, Aiden O'Connell. You know, it's a very clear double stack, Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers. I liked O'Connell better if the Chargers would have been sitting some guys if they didn't need to win this game. But with this being a must win for them, I am worried about O'Connell. I think I may get him in 1 of 20. And then Tyler Huntley rushed the ball 7 times last week, 52 yards and a touchdown. They were talking about how he just looks so much better now than he does at the beginning of the season. He's comfortable. He knows the playbook now. He's only 4,800. I don't think it's crazy if you're running a ton of lineups.
It's not crazy at all. I mean, I think he's a really awesome price point pivot off of Dobbs at a fraction of the ownership. So I don't mind that play at all. I'm not going to go there. I don't know. Like, you're not wrong about AOC, but I'm not going to play AOC. I'd rather just play Huntley if I was going to go a little bit lower. But yeah, I mean, Huntley does not look bad today. I think Huntley's completely fine in large field GPP.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get there, but if you're playing 150 lineups, that kind of thing, totally viable here. Anything else at the position before we wrap it up? I know you did say you like Geno, and we talked about him, but kind of glossed over.
Yeah, I mean, Geno doubles are popping in Sims. Obviously, it's going to be the JSN Metcalf. Like, I think because of the concentration of targets on that team, it's really easy to know where the ball is going to be going, which is unbelievable for DFS purposes. So I really don't mind Geno doubles. I'm considering playing the Geno double in my single entry. The best sim rated lineup that I saw was a Geno double. So I was pretty happy when I saw that actually. So I'm really considering playing Geno doubles, and I don't think that you have to necessarily run it back with anybody, but there are a couple options. Like, you could play that with Blake Corum. You could run it back with Jordan Winnington, who is a wide receiver that we'll talk about later. But I don't think it's absolutely necessary that you have a run back with that stack.
One last thing on Penix that I'll touch on, and again, I don't think I get there, which is why some people, I think some people in chat, it's early in the morning, so I'm not going to blame Michael Knack for struggling with listening comprehension, because again, I don't think I'm even going to play this stack. But he says, if you're pushing Kyle Pitts, you're a fraud. So I wouldn't say I'm pushing him, because I'm saying I'm not going to play it. But a reminder that Darnell Mooney is out for this one, or he's not expected to play. Drake London's probably going to be the one to get all the targets. Penix isn't going to win a GPP if Drake London's the only one catching passes. He's probably going to need to have a bigger game than that. So if you're going to play him and you need a second stacking partner, I think I prefer Pitts over Ray. Was all I was saying in that one. But I'm with you. I don't think I like him. He just hasn't looked that good with the eye test. Let's switch over to running back here. But before we even do that, I want to talk about Splash Sports, because if you haven't signed up for Splash Sports, now is the time. You can use code ROTO10 when you play $100 in quick picks, and you'll get $50 right back. Their lines are slow to move in comparison to the other prop sites. So even if you're not super on the ball right quick, you can still get there on most of these. And so definitely check out Splash Sports if you haven't yet. Code ROTO10, splashsports.com/RotoGrinders homepage. And here's our man Chop with some plays over there today.
Chop here with your Splash Sports pick for Week 18 in the NFL. Let's get right on into it. Starting off with Jahmyr Gibbs, over 32.5 receiving yards for the Lions in this big showdown for the division with the Vikings on Sunday night. Going with Jahmyr Gibbs to get it done through the air. Next up, same game, little correlation for you. I'm going Justin Jefferson, over 91.5 receiving yards. I really think they're going to have a hard time covering Jefferson in this game. I expect it to be a shootout. I'm going back and forth here between these two pass catchers. As always, Roto10 gets you all the good bonuses on Splash Sports. Roto10. Till next week, I'm Chop. I'm out of here.
All right. Thank you to Chop for that. He and I are on the same page. I'm not doing the same Gibbs and Jefferson bets, but I too am using some Gibbs and Jefferson in my cards today. I have Jahmyr Gibbs higher than 17.5 longest rush, Justin Jefferson higher than 6.5 receptions. If we got some time, we will build a card later in the show after we go position by position. But I do know that one, we like Gibbs, we like Jefferson, so does Chop, and Brian Thomas Jr. has some props on there that you and I are interested in as well. And there are even more picks over at our props and pick'em package. Our elite sports betting and fantasy pick'em package features bets and analysis from your favorite RotoGrinders experts. Props and pick'em also includes tools and data powered by our hard-working projections team. Don't make a bet without it. And holiday season's coming to a close. We want you to have a big takedown, so we're taking $10 off your first month of Combo Lite. That means access to our SimLabs lineup building tool and content from some of your favorite DFS analysts for only $19.99. Super inexpensive. Get it while you can. Cheaper than any of the Christmas presents you bought this year. It's looking nice. Get yourself some Combo Lite. The running back position is interesting today because we have 2 to 3 studs on DraftKings, 3 to 4 studs on DraftKings. Looking pretty darn good today. On FanDuel, I mean, because you get to include Jahmyr Gibbs. And then it's just this whole slew, a plethora of cheap running backs you can play today.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify really quick, if you are playing on FanDuel, you should be playing Jahmyr Gibbs like everywhere.
Jahmyr Gibbs up here.
Right.
Bucky Robinson and Bijan Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Bucky Irving, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, everybody else.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is pretty clear cut number one on FanDuel. So I would try to get overweight him in GPPs. If you're playing cash, he should really be your first player in over there. So yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is the top spend up option on FanDuel, but we'll focus on DraftKings mostly. Unless we've got questions in the chat, we'd be happy to answer them. But yeah, so running back, it's going to be Bijan, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious. He's going to be like a core play for just about everybody. He's 8,500. He gets the best matchup on the board against Carolina. They should really be force feeding him the ball, and he gets some receiving work as well. So, and we know that they're highly motivated to win this game. He's showing up in optimals, I think, around 40% of the time, which is really, really nice. So yeah, like Bijan is a top play. He would be like a super terrifying fade. I'm currently not going to be fading him. So yeah, I mean he's the top play at running back. Then I think behind Robinson, it's going to be Bucky Irving, and I again super motivated to win. He's 7,700. I mean, he's been like a couple games. He has been so close to absolutely breaking the slate, but he just can't find the end zone. If he actually does find the end zone, I mean, he'll absolutely break the slate, and you'll have to have him. So I mean, those two guys are your priority spend ups at running back. Then I think you have some decisions to make whether or not you want to go, the Michael Carter route. He's 4,700. Will Shipley, to me, I don't really know what they're going to be doing with Gainwell. That's the only thing.
There's no way they run out Gainwell for a bunch. I can't see it being even a possibility. He's so involved in there every day. Like he's a borderline starter for them.
But I think they only have two active running backs.
I still think Shipley's going to be the guy. I probably avoid the situation on DraftKings just because I don't need to play Will Shipley. But on FanDuel, where Shipley's $4,100, like you just never get a $4,100 on a running back on FanDuel. I think he's a great play there.
So you don't think Gainwell is going to get any work, and they only have two active running backs, but you're not going to play Shipley on DK?
Correct. I would guess maybe 5 to 8 carries for Gainwell and 10 to 12 for Shipley, if I were to guess. And that probably equals, with all their backups in there, 60 total yards. I will play Shipley 100% if I were playing on FanDuel, just because he is only $4,100. But at 46, I'm not against Shipley. I just prefer Michael Carter, and if I'm looking at a flex position, I prefer Olamide Zaccheaus as well.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I think getting to one of these cheap running backs is the way to go, whether it be Carter, Guerendo, or Shipley. I'm considering Shipley the most. I mean, Shipley, I think he's actually got some real like NFL talent. So yeah. And then with Guerendo, I'm probably gonna get my 49ers exposure from Dobbs, Jennings, Pearsall, something like that, and fade the running back situation. So I think the decision for me right now is between Shipley and Carter. And then if you want to go like two expensive running backs, you could fade one of Bijan and Bucky. But I mean, that's pretty terrifying. But I think that is somewhat viable in large field settings.
Tyler Davis asking about Jonathan Taylor in chat, and I do think he's a great play today. That's one of the reasons why I don't think I'm going to get to a lot of Will Shipley, Michael Carter, Blake Corum, Alexander Madison, Isaac Guerrero. It's because I want to spend up at running back, and I really like basically all of the spend ups today. Again, on FanDuel, Jahmyr Gibbs, one above all, above everybody else here. Then tier 2 is Bijan Robinson and Bucky Irving, and then I think tier 3 is Jonathan Taylor by himself, or he's up there with tier 2 with Bijan Robinson and Bucky Irving. I do think he's a great play today against Jacksonville. I would, however, though, rank him 3rd on DraftKings and 4th on FanDuel. How about you?
Yeah, I would rate them the exact same way. We got a question from Mr. Richard in chat. How about Corum? I think Corum's fine. We should see a pretty good amount of work for him today. So I think he's a pretty decent option. Let me just check his projected ownership real quick. I don't think it's going to get too...
Only 13% we're projecting right now.
Yeah, so I mean that's fine. He's not going to be super chalky. So yeah, I don't mind Corum at all. And then we also got a question about Guerrero. Yeah, I think he's totally fine. Like I said though, I'm probably going to get my exposure to the 49ers through the quarterback or wide receiver positions, but Guerrero is a fantastic play. I have no issue with that. I don't mind Tyrone Tracy also. Again, Philly has zero motivation. They'll be playing their backups. I think Tracy's going to be lower owned than Carter, Shipley, Corum, Guerrero. So I mean, I think if you're looking for a running back under that 6K threshold, he's super interesting. I already talked about Rico. I think I do like him quite a bit. We're not playing Josh Jacobs on this slate, right, TJ?
No Josh Jacobs. Not expected for him to get a full workload. So none of him for me. I like the Guerrero specifically as a pivot off of Dobbs. Like I'm going to be playing Dobbs today, but I might get to Guerrero in a couple lineups. I just find myself a bit more likely to pay all the way down or pay all the way up. I will say, like, if you're playing a lot of lineups, Ray Davis and Alexander Madison are projected for super low ownership right now. And I think they're basically the exact same play as Corum, Guerrero, Carter, Shipley. Like, they're basically all the same guy in this spot. And so Madison and Ray Davis at much lower ownership, I don't mind at all. But to me, all of the gold is above 6K. We've talked about Gibbs on FanDuel. We've talked about Bijan, Jonathan Taylor. Bucky Irving is my favorite out of the whole group, not named Jahmyr Gibbs. But J.K. Dobbins is my favorite of this next group. Tony Pollard, going up against all of Houston's backups, has a bunch of incentives to play for. 2 touchdowns and 80 yards, I believe, are the 2 things that he needs. And Zach Charbonnet, because Seattle's playing all of their starters going up against the Rams backups. So Charbonnet, Pollard, and Dobbins, all of them projected for single-digit ownership right now. I think they all have 30-point ceilings in this spot.
There seems to be some like industry indecision about Charbonnet and about what Kenny McIntosh is going to be doing to Charbonnet. Because I was anticipating Charbonnet to be projected a lot higher, really. But I think it's because people are hedging with some McIntosh today. So I certainly, I mean, I love Charbonnet. I just don't think I can do it today because running back is so strong. And I'm just kind of concerned that they, McIntosh could vulture some of Charbonnet's work. So I probably am not going to click on Charbonnet, but I would not fault anybody if they wanted to do that.
Yeah, like that's a large field tournament only kind of thing. Like I think he's very volatile in this spot because even though they've said like we're playing this like a normal game, we're playing the starters, the McIntosh Charbonnet situation is the one that I'm not sure it'll fully go that way. I think they could maybe, if we see 60% Charbonnet snaps, 40% McIntosh, that wouldn't surprise me. But even if it's 70-30, I think Charbonnet is a great spot here. I like Pollard and Dobbins more because they should fully own the backfield in this spot. But Charbonnet, I think, makes for a great large field tournament play. All of them projecting for single-digit ownership right now, and I think they are in a really great spot. Multiple people asking about Michael Carter. We talked about him first. Carter is the best point per dollar option on the slate at running back or maybe any position, but he's going to be super chalky. He's going to be mega chalky today. He's going to be 30+% owned likely. And so it's just about whether or not that you want to go there. We talked about Ray Davis as a pivot, as Tyler Davis asking about him. I like Ray Davis today as a pivot. Very volatile option. We don't know that he's going to get the bulk of the carries because he is fairly involved in their offense on a weekly basis. But I think the reason he has been involved is because they're kind of waiting to unleash James Cook for the playoffs. And so I think Ray Davis is a great option. It's super low ownership today. McChew asking, it's a fun name, McChew, who our top 5 cash running backs are. We don't need that many, but we can give you them just so it depends on the build you're making. And then Samuel Rios is asking about Travis Etienne. No Etienne for me in this spot.
I
don't
know
if it's going to be Etienne or Bigsby.
Yeah, I wouldn't play Etienne today.
You don't need to play somebody who's splitting the carries pretty close to 50-50 on a slate that we have this many good running back plays.
Yeah, so top 5 running backs for cash. The top 2 are incredibly easy. Bijan and Bucky are definitely 1 and 2. Then I think it's probably Michael Carter at 4,700. Isaac Guerendo at 59. I don't know who my 5th potential cash game quarterback would be. I don't know. I think I would really just be debating between those 4. Don't know if I really don't want to play Charbonnet in cash. I don't want to play J.K. Dobbins. I don't think you should be playing Blake Corum in cash games. I really think it's those 4.
Yeah, I think like if you're playing 3 running backs in cash, I think it's basically Bijan, Bucky, and Michael Carter for sure. Like it's like those are the 3 you got to go with. He's not your prototypical cash play, but I think you can play J.K. Dobbins too, just because everybody has been projecting him to not get a full workload all week or just worry about it. But there's no way they want to play Baltimore in the first round when you can play Houston, and so they are going to be doing whatever they can to win this game. And so I love me some J.K. Dobbins today. Any other running backs you want to touch on before we get out of here? Like we got the clear favorites: Gibbs, Bijan, Bucky. Favorite cheapie for point per dollar is Michael Carter, but you can use guys like Davis and Shipley and Madison to pivot off of him. I love the 6K range of Dobbins, Pollard, Charbonnet. Anybody else you like?
No, I think we pretty much covered everyone that we needed to.
Chris in chat needing some help in a fantasy championship. A reminder, everyone, get your fantasy championships in week 16 or 17. You don't want to have them in week 18. This week is just going to be pure luck from that standpoint. But he's asking pick 2. Dobbins, Breece Hall, HN, Guerendo, Michael Carter.
Guerendo. Pick Guerendo and A-Chain probably.
See, I went Dobbins and HN. You like Guerendo more than Dobbins today?
I mean, it's pretty close, and I think it depends on if it's full PPR or not.
Fair. So, but he was worried about HN most of all, but I guess we both put him in there. I think you narrow that down to HN, Guerendo, and J.K. Dobbins. Personally, Dobbins is my favorite out of the group, though. Tyler Davis asking why I like him so much. Well, Gus Edwards is still inactive. He's not going to be splitting carries. They need to win the game, and they're facing one of the absolute worst defenses, especially rushing defenses. What the heck is Michael Knack talking about in chat? It says TJ got new glasses, and Oh, no, sorry. He was talking to me. Never mind. I thought he was coming at me for something, and he was saying, I'm sorry, DJ. Man, maybe I'm the one who needs some new glasses. I love Dobbins so much because the Raiders are horrific. They're absolutely terrible, especially on a run defense standpoint. And the Chargers want to win. They're going to be playing their starters to the absolute max. Dobbins has a ton of incentives to hit as well. So I think he is maybe the best like tournament play on the slate today. What do you think about Breece Hall for tournaments?
Yeah, for some reason they keep trotting him out there for a pretty reasonable workload. So I can't say that I hate it. I think that there are better plays and better matchups, but if you want to go that way, I think that's fine in large field GPPs. Yeah, I mean, he had 10 rush attempts last week and one target. That's not really amazing, but it's not like they're shutting him down either. So, I mean, I guess it's okay. It would just only be in like a super, super large field GPP.
All right, let's make the pivot over to the wide receiver position today. We got Mike Evans, ton of ownership up top, although it has been starting to spread out more through Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors here as well as the week has gone on. Let's start with the expensive ones. How do you prioritize Mike Evans, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors? And then on FanDuel, is it kind of the same thought for you with Justin Jefferson as it is Jahmyr Gibbs? We have this top tier on DraftKings, but it's Gibbs above them and Jefferson above the rest of the receivers.
I'm actually rating Brian Thomas as the best on both sites.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean he's my guy today. I'm rating Brian Thomas Jr. Ahead of Mike Evans. Obviously, if you want to play Mike Evans in cash or GPP, certainly would not fault you. But I am prioritizing Thomas first. That's my play. Then it would be Evans, and then it would be Neighbors. That's how I would rate them. I also really like Cortland Sutton today because I already talked about how much I like Bo Nix, but Sutton's probably not a cash game play. I think you're really debating between Mike Evans and Brian Thomas Jr. It's pretty hard to go both and play Bucky and Bijan. I mean, there are ways that you can do it, but then you really got to punt a couple spots. But I prefer Brian Thomas in cash games.
Brian Thomas is going to be my number one play here as well. I'm going to be prioritizing him over Mike Evans in this spot, but I'm big for me on Brian Thomas today. He's my favorite receiver as well. Evans would come in second, but on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, where there's only a $600 price difference to Justin Jefferson, and Justin Jefferson is projecting for lower ownership than Mike Evans, I think Jefferson's by far the better play over there. I'd prioritize both of them over St. Brown, but he's also a great play that I think he's projecting for like 17%. I don't think it's going to be that high. I think he's going to get squeezed with Mike Evans and Justin Jefferson right above and below him. What do you think about Malik Neighbors today? I'm probably not going to get to a ton of Neighbors despite him absolutely going off last week. I did lose the Blitz 5-man last week, and so I got assigned a quarterback this week, and it's Drew Lock. And so I am going to go Neighbors on that team.
Yeah, obviously. Have to do Neighbors on that team. I really like Neighbors today. You can't fit in everyone that you want, but I really like Neighbors. I think he's only 4 behind Bowers for the record, rookie reception record. So I think there could be a little bit of narrative there. Even if there wasn't a narrative, he would still be a fantastic play. Going up against Philadelphia backups. So, I mean, I really like him. It's just so tough. Like, it's hard to play all these guys that you want in that 7-8K range. But I mean, he definitely would rate third for me behind Evans and Thomas. But he's certainly viable in GPPs. I'm surprised. Like, I guess it's because he exploded so much last week. I'm surprised at his projected ownership.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's that high as well. I really thought I
thought Juwan Jennings would be higher. I thought that
Jennings started the week super high. Like he started the week at like 28 and then it's just dropped.
You're talking about Jennings?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. What about Ladd McConkey, Terry McLaurin, Drake London, Cortland Sutton, Adam Thielen? Like that's a pretty solid 6K range. I think of the group individually, if I'm picking one, it would probably be McConkey, my favorite, followed by Drake London. I think London makes for a great pivot today for tournaments off of Bijan Robinson. With Cortland Sutton's projected ownership, like he's actually projecting to be the second highest owned receiver right now today behind Mike Evans. I think that's with that ownership for tournaments. That's like just exclusively with Bo Nix for me.
Yeah, I was really disappointed to see that projected ownership because Sutton is my favorite in a vacuum. When I consider ownership though, it's probably Ladd or JSN down at 61. I think he's super interesting as well. Obviously, you can play Drake for leverage off of Bijan. I think, but this is a very, very strong range, and ownership's going to be significantly lower in this range. So if you go three guys in the 6K range, you'll be getting off a ton of ownership. So, and they all outside of Thielen, really. And Tyreek, they all have really, really solid quarterbacks, and they're all simming really strong. So this is a really strong range for wide receivers. I'm hoping somehow Sutton gets squeezed a little bit because I really want to stack it with Bo Nix in my primary single entry team.
Well, I think that's fine because you're already different than feel for playing Bo Nix. So like if Sutton goes off, you're just raising ahead of the field there because, yeah, sure, 25% are going up with you at Sutton, but very few of them are doubling up with Bo Nix because of how low owned he is. So I still think that's pretty interesting. I'm not getting any Tyreek Hill. I'm not getting to any Devontae Adams, but we got a question about him in chat. What do you think about Devontae Adams today?
I mean, I know he wants to catch his 500th TD from Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, they've been struggling really bad. This is a game that Miami is going to be going all out to win. I hate to say no to people, no to players that have such massive ceilings, but I know that he would not be in my first 5 teams that I make.
Yeah, it's no Devontae Adams for me. I just deleted from Pranav a comment in chat just because you can't post full lineups. So I deleted it, Pranav, but I do see your question. We will hit it as soon as we get to tight end. Don't you worry. I believe the answer I'm going to say there for you is Peyton Hendershot, but I don't know for sure yet. We'll cover it absolutely when you get to tight end. Don't you worry. Sub 5K range, Jennings is going to be the most popular. He looks really good here. Jacoby Myers looks pretty solid. I think that's chalk I'm going to look to get off of today now that the Chargers are going to be looking to win this game, not rest any defensive guys. Downs, Pittman, and Pierce, I think all look good. Nobody's playing Pierce after his big game last week, so I'm totally fine going back to the well there. But my favorite receiver in the 5K range, by far, that I just truly don't understand this ownership, is Jalen McMillan.
I think my favorite wide receiver in the 5K range is it's Juwan Jennings and Jacoby Myers. But if you wanted to get off of one of those guys, I don't mind going to Jalen McMillan at all, especially if he's going to be that low owned. So I mean, I think he's good. I also don't mind Calvin Ridley. I was surprised to see how high his projected ownership is, but either
he's got
way,
big massive incentives on him too. I think that's why
he's got
all the ownership is just going towards the high incentive guys.
Okay, I must have missed that one. Are people going to go back to Josh Downs?
I don't think so. It seems like they're pretty disappointed with Pittman. So Pittman's picking up higher ownership than him. But it is kind of like going back to that incentive thing quick. It is really crazy when you look at the highest owned plays on the slate. Like, not all of them. There are just some of the very best plays. But Mike Evans, Cortland Sutton, Jawan Jennings, Jacoby Myers, like so many of the top guys are just the guys that, and like Calvin Ridley, who we just talked about, so many of the highest owned plays on the slate are just the ones that have had the most publicized incentives.
Gotcha. Okay. I did not know that he had an incentive.
Yeah. I believe he needs like another one, like 85 or something like that yards. There's a ton of guys that are right around 85 yards.
I know Metcalf has one.
Yeah.
Boy, 5,600 against Rams backups.
Metcalf JSN double stack has so much upside today.
It does. It really does. It's so easy to play. Yeah, I'm really debating Bo Nix or Geno for my primary team. But yeah, I mean, and he's gonna, if you play Metcalf too, it's gonna get you away from the chalkier options of Jawan Jennings and Jacoby Myers. But I also really like those plays as well. So I mean, wide receiver, I think is the toughest position today. Like, there's so many different ways that you can build your wide receiver core. Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough wide receiver day.
Somebody saying pick one wide receiver, one flex, one running back. Geez, Jennings, McMillan, Hall, Garendo, Carter, Dobbins. I'd probably go Dobbins, Garendo, Jennings. Or if you don't want two San Fran players, you can put in McMillan for one of them. Some people like McMillan and Pierce as GPP plays. I love those called. Very low ownership. The one guy I'd want to add to that is Olamide Zaccheaus, who has just stepped into a massive role for Washington. 8 and 10 targets the last 2 weeks. I like Zaccheaus today. Sorensen asking if Zaccheaus is a trap. I don't think it is, T. Sorensen, and the reason because of that is we've seen consistent wide receiver 2 production from Washington all year. It was Noah Brown at the beginning of the year. Not production, at least targets. And so I like him today. I think it would maybe be a bit trappy if he was picking up a ton of ownership, but he's not. Nobody's getting there. What do you think about the cheap Rams receivers today? Tutu or Whittington?
Yeah, so I saw that question. I actually was thinking about that earlier today. I'm worried that Tutu doesn't play the full game because he is their 4th wide receiver. So I think Whittington will end up playing more. So I like Whittington between those 2.
I like Tutu a little bit better, I think, just because he's got more like deep shot upside. But I don't really like either of the cheap Rams receivers today. I'm not going to be going there. Other cheap wide receivers today, like I'm going to be sticking more in the 4 to 5K range than I am going all the way down. Like, I don't really want to try the full out punts today. If I did, it would be maybe with the it would be in Jaden Daniels stacks and like try and take a shot on. Even though the players don't sound great on paper, I like the idea of what I can do with a lineup if I play Jaden Daniels with like mixing in De'Ami Brown, mixing out Jamison Crowder, who's been getting some targets, and Zach Ertz. Like, they're just so cheap that I think I can make a really nice lineup with that spot. So my favorite full out punts are like Crowder, Brown, Vele, sub 3K. But I would rather sub 4K, but I would rather get over that 4K threshold so I could play Ricky Pearsall, only projecting for 4% ownership. Parker Washington, nobody's getting to. Zaccheaus, nobody's getting to. Marvin Mims, nobody's getting to. And I love pairing Mims to your Bo Nix single entry.
I like that a lot.
I like that a lot. Pierce, McMillan. So I don't like the full punt range, but Zaccheaus, McMillan, Pearsall, would be my top 3 cheap receivers for tournaments. How about you?
Yeah, I would probably, for the super cheap guys like under 4K, I would probably go. Well, see, the thing is, I kind of do like some of these KC wide receivers too, but I would go Whittington, Atwell, Justin Watson. Ooh, yeah, probably Justin Watson over Smith-Schuster, but it's super close between those two. I think that'd be about it in terms of these super cheapies that I would consider.
I'm sort of breaking the rule with Dobbs and Pearsall, but for the most part, I think I just don't. I'm going to try and not play backup receivers with backup quarterbacks throwing them the ball. I think that's going to be my biggest goal today, and just play people we know are actually good at football. And hopefully those are the guys that lead me to the promised land today. I'm going to try and not mess around with any of the.
They really aren't. They aren't necessary. Yeah, it's not necessary to go under 4K today unless you want to double pay up at wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2, and then punt wide receiver 3 and punt tight end. But I mean, I really don't. It's not absolutely necessary that you do that.
Yeah, like people asking about Nico Remigio. There's receivers.
I prefer going Justin Watson over him. That's my opinion. But I mean, if you wanted to take a shot on him in a portfolio of teams, I don't hate that.
Let's go over to the tight end position here. It's Brock Bowers, it's Trey McBride, and everyone else is terrible. They are by far the best plays here. I think you want to pay up from a cash game setting. We're getting almost 30% projected ownership for Bowers, 25-ish% for Trey McBride. These two guys will be in about 50% of lineups today.
Who'd you say? McBride and
Bowers.
And you think they're going to add up to 50% of lineups?
Yeah.
Yeah. What if you knew right now that George Kittle was playing?
Then he's very viable, but I still wouldn't get to him much. I don't feel good about Kittle today.
Okay.
He's still questionable. For those people asking Joy Boy Max and Kittle not playing, he is still questionable. We don't know yet. I just think he ranks quite a bit below Bowers and McBride for me.
Yeah, I'm getting to a ton of Bowers in Sims. I'm getting to a ton of Trey McBride as well. Then it falls down pretty quick, just like you said. Not really sure. I don't think we should be playing Peyton Hendershot. I know that he's been priced. I'm certainly not playing him in my single entry team. So I think it's one of Bowers, McBride, and then you go to somebody like Brenton Strange, perhaps a Jake
Strange
Ferguson.
is terrifying. I don't know if you can go Strange unless you're doing a large field. A large field Mac Jones stack, because Strange has just been, as my guy Rich Rebar on the Pick Six show likes to say, absolutely shadow realm since his fumble. He has 1 target since he fumbled 2 weeks ago.
What about Ferkser?
Not somebody that I have considered. I do want to go back to the Hendershot thing quick, and this is with Ferkser. Ferkser and Hendershot, 2 guys, same team, $2,500. I'm not playing either of them either, but I did want to hit on the specific. Who is your favorite $2,500 tight end? Because we did have a question about that in chat.
Yeah, it's a pretty tough one. I think, man, I don't know.
I think I would still go
Hendershot there. What's that?
I think I would still go Hendershot there, probably.
As your favorite 20, yeah. I mean, I think he does
fully 2,500s. Maybe Hunter Long.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty gross range today. If you can find the $300, my favorite would be Culp for Tampa Bay. But he's not projected well at all. But he had 4 targets last week, split time with Payne Durham. And so in my Baker onslaughts today, I'm going to be playing a lot of Payne Durham and Devin Culp in there as well. Durham only projecting for 4%, Culp less than 1%. And so my entire pool right now is Bowers, McBride, Ertz, Jawan Johnson, Austin Hooper, Payne Durham, and Devin Culp. Now, I will take Austin Hooper right out of there if Hunter Henry plays, but Hunter Henry is listed as questionable for this one. So if Henry's out, I think Hooper might be my favorite tight end play of the slate at only $3,300. As it stands right now, I really like Jawan Johnson at $3,600, but this is another one where he is questionable. So if Jawan Johnson doesn't play, Foster Moreau becomes one of my favorite tight end plays on the slate. So Donnie Watson asking that at the exact same time. Do you pivot to Foster if Jawan is out? Absolutely. I think Foster Moreau is a great play if Johnson's out. Of the cheap ones, my favorites to go to: Ertz, Johnson if he's in, Moreau if he's not, Hooper if Henry's out, Payne Durham, Devin Culp. But the goal is to get to as much Bowers and McBride as possible.
Yeah, there's like a big projections difference between RG's projections and the Blitz projections when looking at Noah Gray. The Blitz has Noah Gray projected for, I think, 9 points, and we have him projected for 3. So that's really kind of skewing things in a certain direction, because I'm assuming, whoever's right here, because I just don't think they use Gray that much. So that would end up sending Hendershot's projection even higher on the Blitz. So because they've been Noah Gray's like a starter. He's like their primary, second tight end. So I don't.
And they run like majority 2 tight end offenses. It does seem like they did it less since Hollywood Brown came back, but still, like, Gray is a starter.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like he gets the starter treatment. So that would end up sending Hendershot's projection even higher. Even if they go double tight end, it would be Hendershot and Ferkser. So yeah, Hendershot is a really interesting conversation today, because I don't think we're 100% certain about what happens with Noah Gray.
Alan S asking early slate DraftKings Pollard and the Giants DST or Ray Davis and the Bills DST. I think that's Pollard and the Giants by far for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's Pollard Giants.
We will get to the defense position here shortly, and then we'll go through some other stuff before the GPP Final Takes crew comes in. We got Erik, we got Neil coming, so smash that like button. All you gotta do is take your mouse, slide it over, and give it a little click. If you're watching on your phone, I'm gonna do the demonstration, Tim, because it worked so well last show, and damn, I just found out my screen time was down 8% this week. So shout out to me for getting a little less screen time on my phone. I like getting those updates during the show every Sunday. But all you got to do is take your phone, open up YouTube. Here you go. It's loading. Bang. There we are right at the top. There's TJ. There's Tim. You give us a little click. And this is where things get confusing, Tim, because you see the chat there. There is no like button. And so I got to hit this little X right here. Click hi chat. Hit the like button. You can see I have already done it. It does wonders for us. It's free content on a Sunday. It's nice and easy. Help us out. Smash that like button. Somebody asking Miller for Tampa Bay tight end. Scott Miller is a receiver. He's not a tight end. Their tight ends are Durham and Culp. But Ryan Miller is a receiver for them, not a tight end. And I don't think I'd be getting there today. I did take some shots on Ryan Miller, I think, last week at the receiver position because he was fully min price.
He's a tight end on FanDuel.
Is he rated as ranked tight end? That's weird.
Yeah,
what's his price?
He's 4.4. The Blitz has him for 5.8 points.
That's actually somewhat interesting then, as a super cheap tight end.
Yeah, it's really not. I don't think it's a horrible play. I mean, Hendershot's 4K on FanDuel. And again, this projection on him might be low because the blitz still has Noah Gray getting a decent amount of work. So, but yeah, I mean, Miller's fine in GPPs.
Yeah, and I actually think you could play him at 3K flat on DraftKings too, with Sterling Shepard, K. Doughton still out. People asking about Luke Schoonmaker, not for me. People asking about Tommy Tremble, probably not for me. My bad about the Ryan Miller thing. I didn't realize he was tight end there, but that is interesting, I think, on both sides as a full-on punt with no Shepard, no Otten. Bobby Osborne in the Twitter chat asking if we talked QBs already. What's our thought on Dobbs? We did. Dobbs is the cash game QB today. 4K on DraftKings. He is the quote-unquote best quarterback on the slate from the point per dollar standpoint. If you're looking to build optimally, you're playing Baker or you're playing Dobbs. Any top player props? We have gone through a few. We talked some on Splash Sports, and I think we actually will have time to make a card here. So we'll run with we'll do some Splash Sports prop stuff here as soon as we go through DST. Anything else at tight end you want to touch on? If you're playing one in cash, is it McBride or Bowers?
I guess it's probably Bowers.
I think so too, but I do like McBride in Dobbs stacks. Like if I'm playing I have McBride right now in my Dobbs, Pearsall, Jennings team. And so that's where I'm running it back with him. Let's go DST. I think it's a little bit like usually, it's play whoever you want at DST, and that is the case again today, but I think there are more things to consider with the amount of backups in there. And so number one overall defense, I think, is 3,600 Buccaneers or 3K Broncos. Those would be the two top choices, I think.
Yep.
Of the other guys between them, like you could play Colts, you could play Falcons, you could play Eagles, you could play. I wouldn't want to play Packers, I don't think, but you could, and the Chargers absolutely as well. So like anybody above 3K, you can play today on defense. You know what? Like, I would not play the Saints. I would not play the Raiders. I don't think I would play the Cowboys, but they do have Micah Parsons, so they're always viable. I would not play the Rams.
What about
every other defense on the slate is viable?
Did you say Panthers?
Yeah, I wouldn't play the Panthers.
I wouldn't play the Panthers.
I wouldn't play the Panthers either. But
I really like this. I really like the Seahawks.
I really like the Seahawks here too. I think they're in a great spot. I don't think I'd play the Chiefs.
Oh, I didn't realize the Seahawks are going to be the most owned though.
Yeah, they're going to be chalk. Like Seahawks, I like Broncos better than Seahawks straight up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the Broncos just because I wanted to get as much exposure to that Denver side as I can in single entry. So I do like the Broncos quite a bit. I guess the Seahawks are going to be the highest owned. That takes them down a tier for me. I think the Texans at 2,800. I think they're a really good play. Will Levis is starting today. He is super. He takes a ton of sacks. He is a turnover machine. So I don't mind the Texans, even though they really have nothing to play for. I think just Will Levis is just that bad. So I don't mind the Texans at 2,800.
Yeah, nothing wrong with the Texans at all there. I'm with you. My favorite punt, if I need it's a full-out punt, are probably the Bears or the Giants. What do you think? Giants 1, Bears 2.
I don't have a problem with that. I think the Bears would be my favorite punt. Is Green Bay locked in their spot?
Yeah, they're expected to, or I think like maybe they could have some small shift, but something else happens and it's not a big deal for them. And so like they've already said like they're not going to go. They're going to start the starters, but I don't think they're going to expect to have the full game. So I think still Giants ahead of Bears because I'm not worried about all the Philadelphia backups really, and Giants defense playing a little bit better lately. But that's kind of where I'm feeling it. Another person asking about Tanner McKee. No, I don't think we're playing Tanner McKee today. Too many better options on the slate. Let's pull up a Splash Sports card. If you got any questions, get them in. The GPP Final Takes crew will be here in about 5 to 10 minutes. Smash that like button if you're watching us on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. Let's look at some Splash Sports quick picks here. Tim, code ROTO10 at the splashsports.com/RotoGrinders homepage. Spend $100, get $50 right back. You go first. I know I'll go first. I got 2 different ones that I want to go with. But
so Brit Devine just asked, "What's Brian Thomas' number on Splash?" That's who I'm taking on Splash.
That's our first one, Brit.
That's our very first one. What's the number on his receiving?
So anytime you can get receptions, that's my priority for Brian Thomas over receiving yards, just because he catches so damn many. And 6.5 receptions for Brian Thomas, that just feels like the walk of walks.
Yeah, and then what's his? It's 82.5.
82.5, also great. Brian Thomas is wonderful, but Brian Thomas receiving yards is wonderful, but the 6.5 receptions, like that's to me is the walk of locks.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it. Either one of those two, whatever you think is better.
Let's pivot over to Jahmyr Gibbs here. Do they have his longest rush? They do. Hits this almost every single week. Jahmyr Gibbs, longest rush, 17.5. I like that. I like him to have more than 33.5 receiving yards. I like him to have more than 90.5 rushing yards. But the longest rush is my favorite one always to take with Gibbs.
Yeah, I do like that quite a bit.
Mr. Richard asking who would be your single bullet in the Millie Maker? Would it be Bo Nix?
I think it would be. I think it would be Bo Nix.
Eric Johnson saying he loves Baker Mayfield, asking if he's chalk. Yes, he is the highest owned quarterback on the slate. Justin Jefferson, more than 6.5 receptions. My next favorite one here. Would you like that one?
Yep, that's fine.
I love the idea of stacking Jefferson and Gibbs up together in props, in betting, in DFS today. Any format I can play Gibbs and Jefferson together, I want to do it.
Can you just check Josh Jacobs props real quick?
See if we can get some unders if they're too high.
Yeah.
No, they're not even on there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are our top 3 picks. We got Gibbs, we got Jefferson, we got Brian Thomas. You also got Chop's video who liked Gibbs and Jefferson in various capacities again today. So check out Splash Sports, code ROTO10. Tyler Davis asking a good question. Who do you think is the worst chalk today? Who's the one guy you look at and go like, geez, he should not be this highly owned?
It's a good question. I'm a little bit concerned about Jacoby Myers. He's going to be pretty popular. Drake London, I think, is a little bit too popular.
I'm going to say the Cardinals, and Michael Carter should be 30%. Like, he's the best option of the group, but not enough to be 30% when we have so many cheap running backs. And then Kyler Murray too. Like, I just don't think he should.
I was just going to say, I don't think Kyle Murray warrants that high projected ownership. So if he comes in, I don't want to play him if he's going to be that highly owned.
Same page today. Some people asking about like Tanner McKee again and Tyler Algier. We have so many great plays today. We don't have to get that off the board. Like, we really don't have to play those type of guys. Joe Adamo shouting you out, Tim. He was first winning 5K on FanDuel until that late Fury by Pat Fryermuth thank you for the advice. Didn't quite win, but still had a really good day. So shout out to you, Tim. Shout out to Joe for
Good job,
the big
Joe.
day. How about Zacchaeus as a punt? I think Zacchaeus makes for a great punt at receiver today. Samuel Rios talking Marvin Mims. I like him too. Are you going with a KC run back today in your Nick stacks? I don't think you need one. I personally would just want to go Nick Sutton Mims and just ignore Casey.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to do one, it would be probably my favorite is Justin Watson, but I don't think you have to.
Justin Herbert's thoughts for a GPP.
He's simming really well. He's not somebody that I'm considering. I don't know. I guess I just don't really like that game as much as some other games on the slate. But Herbert and Ladd stuff is simming pretty well right now.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't know if I get there, but I don't mind Herbert at all. What do you? Samuel Rios asking, what do you think of Dowdle as a running back? I initially hadn't considered him. You talked me into a little Dowdle though with a Jaden Daniels stack, I think.
Yeah, I like Rico.
Butho asking, do the Packers really win by 9.5 today? I think that's an interesting idea of playing the Bears side of that plus 9.5 with the idea that maybe the Packers play their backups later in the game and Caleb Williams is able to get them close. I don't hate that. I don't know if I do it, but I don't hate it. Anthony Hunt says he's only asking about McKee because because Eagles plan on playing Goddard, and Goddard could put up McBride type numbers. I doubt it. I bet you they just give Goddard a chance to run some routes and get back in there a little bit. But in a meaningless game, I don't think they're going to risk getting him injured again for playoffs. They probably are just activating him because, there's only a certain amount of people they can rest. And I'm willing to bet that he definitely doesn't get his full allotment of snaps today. Great job by the chat today, smashing the like button, asking some really solid questions. I like to think we did a pretty good job here too, Tim. We should have the GPP Final Takes crew coming in any minute here. Beantown asking about Mitch Trubisky today with a Samuel and Knox stack.
No,
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Isn't Allen gonna play a couple series, right?
I think we're expecting Allen to get like the first drive, maybe the first quarter, but even still, it's a no on Trubisky today. We got Jaden Daniels projecting for 5% ownership, guys. We don't need to play Mitch Trubisky. We can play really good quarterbacks. Josh Dobbs is your punt. There's a couple guys in the cheaper mid tier like Mac Jones and Geno Smith and Joe Flacco you can go to, but we don't need to mess around with Mitch Trubisky or Carson Wentz or
we actually took Allen out of
like not today.
We took Allen, I guess, out of projections.
Oh, there you go. But yeah, like still no Trubisky today. What do you think about Garendo? We both liked Garendo today, especially as a pivot off of the Chalky Dobbs.
Yeah, I think Garendo's just fine.
Pick one for flex. Any of the Colts receivers or Olamide Zacchaeus?
Depends on the rest of your team, but I think Pittman's probably the best play.
Do you think Deontay Johnson gets on the field for Houston today? He's 3.7K. Davis Mills throwing him the ball. Doesn't matter.
We have him projected for 6 points, so I mean he probably does get on the field. I don't see why we should play him though.
Thoughts on Devon Achane? Not for me today. I don't know how that offense is going to do with Huntley. Sure, he has looked a little bit better in the last game, but still don't think I'm going to be getting to Devon Achane at all. I did get to him in some underdog drafts because he was just getting drafted so late. But I'm not getting to him in any GPPs today. Who is the cheapest, riskiest play that you like the most Now that is a question for the GPP Final Takes crew that's coming in, because I know Erik's going to have some cheap, risky receivers to throw in there. For me personally, I think it would be Dyami Brown. What about you?
Johnny Wilson.
And then maybe Will Shipley on FanDuel, where he is so wildly cheap. Anthony Hunt asking if Jordan Love or Jaden Daniels are viable plays. I would say Jordan Love is not. Jaden Daniels is my favorite tournament play of the slate. Any love for Gainwell? No, I don't think he is going to be a guy that gets snaps today. I think he's going to maybe play a couple drives, but it's going to be Will Shipley season because they use Gainwell far too often in their regular offense. That'll do it for us. I'll still be here behind the scenes, but we got Crunch Time crew coming in later at 12:15 Eastern. It's Will, it's Brit, it's Beer, and for right now, we got the GPP Final Takes crew. It's Erik, it's Neil, coming in hot right now. Gentlemen, how we doing? Erik, it was the perfect time to bring you in with one of the last questions being who's our favorite cheap, risky receiver?
Yeah, we got some names for that. That is for sure. You guys did hit some of them. But my favorite, I just wanted to mention, Breezy said in the chat when that's the most fitting comment I've ever seen for week 18 was when someone recommends some crappy wide receiver and someone says, did they just make that name up? And that may happen over the course of the next hour and a half with some of our guys. I was this morning in the weeds with some really bad tight ends because tight end is actually kind of, even more polarizing position. I think there's less options. And so I was looking for anything. And buddy, we are in some dark times with the guys that I was looking at the tight end position. So we're going to get into a lot of really bad football players today. That's for sure.
Who is the grossest tight end you're considering? I think mine's Devin Culp.
Dallin Holker.
Oh, you win. I don't even know who that is.
Exactly.
I don't know.
You got me beat there.
So Juwan has to not play. Juwan Johnson for the Saints has to not play.
I'm a Saints fan and I didn't even know who that was.
I found out this morning, TJ, that he was a finalist for the Mackey Award. He transferred from BYU. I knew he was at Colorado State, transferred from BYU and went to Colorado State. He's very old. He went on a Mormon mission, so he's a 24-year-old rookie. So he's got that going for him. Very experienced, right? He's a seasoned vet at the age of 24. But yeah, we're looking for all the bad players. And like I said, tight end, I think is a kind of fun conversation today. It's usually like a little boring. It's gross, but it's kind of fun.
One thing I want to bring up before Tim and I get out of here, because multiple people had asked about it, and I think I forgot to bring it up. What does the group think about possibly his last game ever, Aaron Rodgers going out with a bang? Double stacks with with Wilson and Devontae.
I can't do it.
I don't think I can. It's not a terrible idea. I was talking with Travis Mangone about Aaron Rodgers last night. I don't know, 19.5 implied team total for the Jets. I don't see the vision. I don't think.
If they were playing the Jags again, like they were a couple weeks ago, we'd be having a very different conversation than them playing the Dolphins. Also, last week got many things wrong last week, but can't get a situation more wrong than the Jets last week. If you guys remember, Garrett Wilson came out, or the report about Garrett Wilson came out that morning that he did not want to play for the Jets next year if Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers comes out and peppers Garrett Wilson with a million. Maybe we should have thought about that, Neil. We should have said he wants to keep Garrett Wilson, so he's going to make him happy. And we thought it was over, right? The relationship was already over. So maybe the double stack is in play because he's mended that Garrett Wilson relationship.
Maybe.
All right. Great stuff, gentlemen. Tim and I will bounce out of here. We got some lineups to make. I'll be here behind the camera, but Neil, Erik, take us away.
Yeah, Neil, we're in for a doozy today, and everybody in the chat. Week 18, I do love it. There's something about my kind of sicko brain that loves week 18, but it is a grind, and we're gonna get into some gross things as we mentioned there during the segue. But if you've not joined us before week 18, what a roller coaster you're in for today. Not maybe our traditional Sunday morning show, but a fun one nonetheless. We're not necessarily going to go game by game or position by position like you see on a lot of the content. What we're going to try to do is bounce around to the most notable, core things about that slate. That could be a player that this week, right? It's kind of clear. It's going to be the teams that are motivated and the teams that are playing their starters and playing to win, the teams that are not, and we're playing backups and some of these crappy players. And then everything in between, right? Weather and there. Ironically, it's horrible where I live. I'm in St. Louis. The weather is absolutely atrocious. And I go this morning, I'm like, oh, I haven't even thought about the weather for DFS. And I go look and it's fine. It's totally fine everywhere. So I was shocked. Yeah, I was totally shocked about the weather. So there's a lot to discuss. I do want to start though, Neil. I think we kind of start with the theme, if you will, of the slate. We'll get to the punt, crappy plays, and all that kind of stuff. I want to start with the really motivated, like really high projected, good, air quotes, good players on this slate. And we don't need to run down right at this moment, like every single team's exact motivation, but there's two teams, I think, to everybody three teams that stand out the most in terms of a motivation perspective. Stone cold have to win today. The Dolphins are in there, but it's Tyler Huntley and stuff, so they're like a second, right? They need to win to have a chance to make the playoffs. But it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the New Orleans Saints. They also happen to have a double whammy of Mike Evans chasing down some incentives and some big statistical performances. Then we have the Atlanta Falcons in that same division. Those two teams are playing for one spot in the playoffs. They both need to win. They both happen to also have really good matchups. So it kind of the stars align with those guys. They both also play at noon. So it's not like a scenario where we could get, the Bucks play at in the afternoon games and the Falcons lost. So they could, nope, they're both going to play full out in the whole game. And then the Denver Broncos with the Cincinnati Bengals, especially, they would play to win today regardless. But with the Cincinnati Bengals winning last night over the just pathetic Pittsburgh Steelers, the Broncos are got to win to get in here. So those teams are extremely motivated and they all happen to be in really good spots. Is there any of those that is like your primary focus, right? Like if I had to pick a player or a stack or something like that amongst those guys, because they all have some pretty good options, right? Whether it be Bijan or London, whether it be Mike Evans or Bucky, and Cortland Sutton, I think looks really awesome in this spot as well. He also has some incentives, I think, too. So him and Evans are very similar. Anything in particular amongst those that's your priority, or are you just kind of like really in on all of them?
I am really in on all of them. So I guess that is the actual answer. But I would say if I had to choose one, probably Bijan and the Falcons against the Panthers, just because the matchup is so good. Bijan probably going to continue to get work late into the game, regardless of the game situation. With the Bucks, it's like I really like both Mike Evans and Bucky Irving, but it also kind of feels like there's a split, like where it's like, okay, Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield has said like he's going to get the 1,000 yards, he's going to get the 5 catches, whatever he needs if we win the game. He's going to get that if we win the game, and I believe him. But like at that point, once it gets to 5 and 85, then is it just the Bucky show? Kind of feels like it would be like if assuming that they're up and they should be up on the Saints. So it sort of feels like it's probably going to be a lot of Mike Evans early on, probably a lot of Bucky Irving late. I don't know that either of them is going to be peppered with opportunities like the entire game. So I really like both of them. I don't want to like downplay it, but I think Bijan has everything going for him where it's like he's going to get the ball early. He's going to get the ball often. He's going to get the ball the entire game, I would think. So I think Bijan probably my favorite of the group. Drake London obviously also has the great matchup. But yeah, I think like Bijan my favorite play of the slate probably. How about you?
I think so too. The Bucks are such a kind of a difficult like mental exercise to go through because exactly like what you just said. The incentive stuff, let's do that with Evans really quickly. The incentive stuff is a factor. No one's arguing that it is not. But Mike Evans is a good play, whether or not he's chasing down an incentive today, right? And then his incentive is such that if he hits it, do I care? Do I care if he goes 5 for 90? Right? Even 5 for 90 and 1.
Right.
like 5 for 101. Shoot, like that's good, but like he's $8,000 on DraftKings. He's not cheap. He's going to be really owned. Even if he scores 25 fantasy points at $8,000, am I like happy he's in my lineup? Kind of. Like it's one of those you're like, this is fine. I needed this at a minimum, but this didn't win me the slate, right? This just like was okay. This was a piece that fit into the puzzle. And when I pay $8,000 for a guy like Bijan, I want that guy to not be just a piece in the puzzle. I want that guy to be like score 45 and bury everybody on the whole slate. Evans can do that. I'm not saying Evans can't do that. If the Saints push back today, and it does get a little, shootout-y, Mike Evans can absolutely break the slate. So I'm not trying to say he can't. But can the Saints push? Like, can the Saints push back? I'm not so sure. So I'm waffling a little bit on the Bucs more so than I thought I would be coming into today.
Yeah. I think, yeah, same page as far as the Bucs, and I still do like them. I still think that it's like one of the better spots to attack, some of the better players in a nice matchup. Everything looks good, but yeah, I prefer the Falcons. So
rank Bijan. I'll put London in there just because I think he's an intriguing tournament. Because I agree with you. I think our list is going to end up the same, but I want to put London in there because he's pretty interesting from a tournament perspective today against the Panthers with Pennick, with a quarterback who can actually throw the ball further than 5 yards down the field. Bijan and London I think you would agree that they're the clear Falcon standouts, right? Mooney has kind of taken the backseat to London. And Algier may not touch the field today. I love Tyler Algier, but I'm not sure he's going to get the ball very much. And then Evans and Bucky. If you want to put McMillan in there, sure. I don't think he really deserves that conversation. And I do want to put Cortland Sutton in there. We haven't talked about the Broncos yet, but you want to talk about a motivated team. I mean, win or go home for the Broncos the same way, and they're playing the Chiefs backups, right? Shout out Jordan Vanek from here at RotoGrinders, does a bunch of awesome content, but he does some like schematic breakdowns that I really enjoy reading every single week, just to get a glimpse into something that's not just like projections and game theory and all that kind of stuff. And he talked about expecting the Chiefs to play kind of their same, right, as you would expect, their base defensive like scheme, except maybe like, pull it back a little bit with some more backups in there. Like Trent McDuffie's not going to play, and the cover one defense that they typically play and some pressure defense that they typically play is like a feeding frenzy for Cortland Sutton. The way that he plays, he's the first read on all that stuff. And so if Bo Nix is getting pressured, we're going to Cortland Sutton. He's a little bit less, on the totem pole for most people to these other guys, but I think he should be included in this conversation. Where do you rank all those guys?
Yeah. So Bijan number one. So ranking all of the
Bijan,
guys who are
London, Evans, Bucky, Sutton the only Bronco, but 2 from the other teams.
Yeah. So I would say Bijan number 1, probably Evans number 2, Bucky 3, London 4, Sutton 5 would be how I would rank that. Cause I think the Chiefs still have a really strong defense, even if they are going to be probably resting some starters. But yeah, I think that's probably my order. How about you?
I think so too. I just sat there and talked up London, right? Or Sutton. And I
still like Sutton. Like they're all good plays.
He's a good play. It's just also like he would be something I'm trying not to do, and that's like over adjusting because it's week 18. And the guys who we can tell ourselves that story, it feels like to me, the royal we, myself, everyone, we add fantasy points to the projection for the guy, right? The projection is it accounts for the fact that he's running all the routes and he's motivated and all that kind of stuff. But in our head, we add points to Cortland Sutton's projection and we remove them from Josh Downs' projection. Because who cares? What is Josh Downs playing for? And it's like, well, the coach is playing for his career, right? The team is going to play to win. They just lost to the Giants, buddy. They don't want to go. Shane Steichen doesn't want to go out like losing back-to-back games to the Giants and the Jags. They're going to play to win. Joe Flacco is in there. Earlier this year, we were playing Flacco stacks as chalk. We played Flacco stacks last week, but we were playing Flacco stacks as chalk, in many, many different weeks. And in week 18, they're not unowned. I'm not trying to make that case, but it takes a while before you get down to teams like the Colts and teams like the Jags, right? We've been playing BTJ. We've been playing Josh Downs, but in week 18, we add to the motivated teams and the incentive based guys. And I think that that's one of the areas that we can pounce on in tournaments and just be like, you know, Mike Evans and Cortland Sutton can have good games, and that doesn't mean they're going to win us tournaments today.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Favorite game to target? Is it one of those? Is it Bucks? Is it Falcons? Let's start with some game stacks, because again, I don't think people are doing a lot of the game stacking in this week as much as we would in a normal week, right? Because we're trying to hunt our favorite one-offs, and we'll get to some of those crappy, you know, punt plays to make these lineups work. But favorite games you're targeting, or game?
I would probably say Carolina, Atlanta, because I really like the Falcon side, and then I think you can run it back with Adam Thielen. So probably that one would be my favorite. There's none of the games really stand out as like I really want to play a ton of this game. I like the Buck side of that game. I'm not really into the Saints as much. I think if I had to choose a game, probably the Falcons and Panthers. It's a good thought. I probably should think more about game stacking, because this is a slate where everything is so weird that I'm just like throwing crap against the wall, kind of feels like. But maybe game stacking is a good idea to think about doing a little bit more of that. Are you landing on any particular game?
Yeah, I like that one a lot. And then Colts Jags is another one. Shout out to Steve in the chat. I saw the Darnell. I did not see the report last night. I knew Darnell Mooney was questionable. I was waiting for that news. I did not see the Ian Rappaport, but granted, it's rap sheet, so we'll see. Let's take everything he says with a grain of salt. But Mooney is a long shot to play. So does that change anything about just more London or Ray McLeod or Kadero Hodge? Is it Kadero Hodge? Right, we're all going to play Jordan Whittington. Why can't we play Kadero Hodge on a motivated team?
No, I think Kadero Hodge actually looks really good. They were already working him in last week. It was on a showdown slate. Yeah, and he, like, early and often they were like, we got to get this guy the ball. So they apparently like Kadero Hodge and now know Darnell Mooney. So yeah, I think Ray McLeod, I'm not sure. Do you think it changes his role much? I'm not convinced that it does. I think it's just
he's just the slot guy.
Like, right? It's still like playable, but I do think Kadero Hodge becomes pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think he does. I think that game becomes more interesting, oddly enough, without Mooney. Also, like that, Bijan to me is similar to Bucky last week. Bijan is a running back that you can play with, like if you want to stack the game up. Of course, you can play the Bryce side, but you can play Penix, London, Bijan, Hodge. What you can onslaught the Falcons, and Bijan's going to catch passes, and if they just score a boatload of points, you're good. I actually think they're going to score a boatload of points. So I really, really like the Falcons. They're like my number one offense target, more than the Bucks. And I don't think ownership, other than Bijan, I don't think ownership is necessarily going to play out that way. I think the Bucks are kind of the field's priority, and they're a priority to me too. It's just I would rank the Falcons ahead of them, and the Panthers, like you said, have Thielen, have Coker. I'm not doing the Raheem Blackshear thing again. Don't worry, we're not going to talk about him today. Woof. The Panthers were a mess last week, but I think the Panthers have enough playable pieces to make it a little game stack. And that, like, you just expressed the feeling that I was having like yesterday. I was starting to put together teams, and I'm like, let's pick this one off and this one off. And I'm playing Bijan and I'm playing Bucky, and and how do I make it work? And I was playing it like an NBA slate. And I think that's how everyone plays these slates. It's like who are the best pieces, right? There's a 3K guy here and there's an 8K guy here. And it's like, that's how Evans becomes really, really chalky. People stop doing the fundamental things we've done all season because week 18 is weird. And like, if a game shoots out, you still want that game. It does there's no reason that week 18 is that much different just because we have a couple of value pieces that we didn't have before.
True. And also, I didn't fact check him on this, but I was talking with Scott Barrett yesterday, and he was mentioning, like, last year the winning lineup didn't have any of the punt pieces, like all of the cheap value. There's like it just didn't. It was just all of the the good plays that you usually play. You didn't throw in any of the which I thought was interesting. Again, didn't fact check, but like I kind of believe it. Like I can see why that would be the case, because we still do have a lot of strong options of like the good players that are usually playable. So we don't necessarily need to go to the off the wall Nico Remigio or some of the players I'm planning on playing
Tyrell
today.
Shavers, Jordan Whittington. Yeah, we're gonna get to those guys, but I think that I'm glad you said that, because I think that's the thing that I keep coming back to. And maybe I'm really latching on to that one thing too much, but it's like, we're all hunting because it's fun, right? And it's like, if you're like, there's a 4K running back and I hit that guy, like, this is not available to us most of the season. So we get that new thing and we latch onto it. And you're like, well, if it's right, I have a superstar or whatever for fantasy purposes at 4K or 3K. And that unlocks so much in your lineup. But like most of these games, most of these teams, even the total tank like teams that have no shot at the playoffs, are playing their starters. And so it's important to factor that in, that like most of the player pool is not the bad players, and they're bad players for a reason. And most of the bad players are playing with like backup quarterbacks, right? Jimmy G, Carson Wentz, like it's bad. So I don't know. I keep wavering on that, but we should break down those like crap plays, right? That's what it is. It is ultimately, you may need something, right? I'm talking about Alan Holker and crap in the intro. You may need someone like that. So when you're starting, you're like, all right, let's run down the crap. Let's start at running back, I guess. Let's do the running backs, and then we'll go to the wide receivers. The running backs that are now, things are opening up, right? Saquon sitting, obviously. Some of these guys are stepping into bigger roles this week. Where are you looking to first at the running back position?
Probably Michael Carter. I think just 4,700 should get the bulk of the work for the Cardinals. Fine matchup with San Francisco. So I think he's probably number one for me. On FanDuel, it might be Will Shipley first if he plays, which is that
technically questionable. Practice in full on Friday, but I think he still has to pass the protocol.
I think he does too. We'll find out in 8 minutes if he did pass the protocol. So if he plays, Will Shipley on FanDuel in particular at 4,100 stands out as just a great value. Depending where we draw the line, like, does Blake Corum qualify?
Definitely. Or maybe you're a big Cody Schrader fan or something. I don't know. Is it going to be Blake? Do you think it's going to be all? So here's my concern with these guys. We just say next man up. But like typically, like TJ was saying right before we got on, like Kenny Gainwell's a part of, like, they're about to make the playoffs, and Kenny Gainwell's like a part of the team. He like, you would say, oh, the backup is next up, but we're going to Will Shipley, which just means I think that's right. But like, we don't really know. Like what if they just say, Kenny, we want you to go, you've busted your ass all season, go get 80 and a touchdown or whatever in week 18 so you can have a good, like, I'm not expecting that, but that's how I feel. It's like Corum gets to play. Like, do they want Ronnie Rivers or Cody Schrader to play today? The Bills are out here talking about, we would like Mike White to get in the game. Right. And it's like the teams that are benching guys, there's a lot more uncertainty around it than I think maybe we give credit to.
No, that is a good point. Yeah, that's part of the struggle here is like, okay, I assume Michael Carter is going to get the bulk of the work for the Cardinals. That's part of the reason I like him. There's no guarantee there. There's no guarantee that it is Will Shipley for the Eagles. Carson Steele, I almost feel like Carson Steele is like more of a sure thing to get work, but less of a sure thing to do anything with that work because he's just not that good. I still think like he's a fine play. Like, I think he's very much in play at 4,700, so he needs to be part of that conversation. Do you have favorites here that I'm not? I mean, CEH, who are you going with?
Yeah, this is my struggle. As I thought we would come into this week and I would be like slam dunk, Will Shipley, slam dunk, Michael Carter, slam dunk, whoever. And I just don't feel that way. And that's what has me going back to like what we just talked about, what you just brought up with. Maybe it is more of some of the guys that we wouldn't expect, right? That's like just the normal players. A guy who is sort of in this conversation not in this conversation for he's never played all year and is now going to get probably a lot more work today, but is benefiting from still some of the chaos of week 18. And this is gross. I wrote this. I think I made him my top tournament player or whatever in the expert survey. It's Alexander Madison. 5,300 on DraftKings. No, obviously Zamir White is on IR and Amir Abdullah is doubtful today. If we've learned anything about how they feel about Dylan Laube, it is that they don't feel anything about Dylan Laube. And Antonio Pierce is one of those. This falls into the like coach motivation part of it. Like, he's trying to keep that job, man. Like, if he beats the Chargers today, he can go in and at least say like, look, we had a bad team, but we pulled out some wins, right? We should have beat the Chiefs. We beat the Chargers. He can do all of that. I think they're just going to I think Madison is the surest workload of all of those crappy guys. Is he the best player? No, not necessarily, but the matchup is fine. And AOC is playing. Like, we know he'll check it down, right? Amir Abdullah's been getting home for weeks in a row, playing in this role. So I actually think, in a weird way, it's not one of the kind of crappy backups playing with crappy offenses. It's now, they are a crappy offense, but Madison is really intriguing because he's also potential leverage off of Brock Bowers and leverage off of all those other cheap running backs. He's stood out to me a lot this week.
I have not given a ton of thought to Madison. Are you concerned about the matchup? I mean, the Chargers just, I guess that's part of the reason that I haven't gotten super excited about it. But you're right. You could just see massive workload with no Amir Abdullah. Very much.
Catch the ball.
There's just so many that are like sort of in play. Like, I think he qualifies like, I could probably see myself getting to some Madison. But then I also am like, why don't I just play like the guys that I want, would have played on a normal week? Like Isaac Guerendo against the Cardinals looks like pretty strong play without, factoring in Tyrone Tracy looks like a strong play. Brian Robinson. So I think I would be playing, like I said, more of the guys who were usually in play. At just reduced ownership because everybody's gonna chase the super cheap guys, I think.
So let's talk about those guys.
Yeah,
I think that you're perfect segue. Madison is like your Guerendo for you is Madison for me. I think is kind of where we're saying Guerendo 5,900 on DraftKings in the like, other than of course the 49ers are dead and not playing. The Cardinals are dead and not playing for anything. In good weather, 49ers starting lead running back probably getting all of the work, and in a good matchup with Arizona, and nobody cares, right? It could because Will Shipley is there, whatever. Is Guerendo your favorite there? And then do you have some of those other guys, like you said, Tracy, et cetera, that you're prioritizing?
I think Guerendo probably is my favorite there. Just like he's buried in the depth chart. They have no reason to like keep him rest. I mean, obviously this is also their last game of the year, but they're not like worried about him getting hurt anyway. So just like load him up with carries. Tyrone Tracy, pretty interesting. I do like Brian Robinson, although Austin Eckler is back.
Yeah. So
maybe I shouldn't like him as like that. That is a kind of a big factor. It's just it's a nice matchup with Dallas. Would make sense for them to run it quite a bit. So I like Brian Robinson, but it's definitely a downgrade seeing Eckler back for the Commanders. So I think it's Guerendo number one for me, probably followed by Tracy, I guess. I'm struggling with what to do with Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard actually projects really well. And now we do know that he's playing, but I'm not convinced that he's healthy.
Incentives as well, and I think that's why he's playing. To be quite honest, Tyjae Spears, man, Tyjae was going to go nuts last week. By the way, what a brutal run out for everybody.
Yeah.
All 10 million of us that played Tyjae Spears. But I think he's fine, right? Tyjae, again, we're 2 minutes away from actives and inactives, but just looking up my old incentive list, Tony Pollard needs 83 plus rushing yards for an extra $250,000 and 2 rushing touchdowns for $200,000. So, he can make a $500,000 today, basically, on incentives. Does that matter? Not necessarily, but I think that's why you're seeing Tony Pollard in what you would think is a seemingly meaningless game for him play in this football game. Is I would play too for $500,000.
Yeah. But he's also hobbled, so I think it's another like Evans situation where it's like if he gets there, it's probably done. Like once he gets to any incentives, I don't know. Do you think you're going to play some Tony Pollard?
I don't think so. I actually like quite a few running backs, and I can gal brain myself, and I'm trying really hard not to. But I really like Guerendo. Like I'm with you on Guerendo. I really like Madison, and then I really like Bijan is my favorite running back play of the slate. I do really like Bucky. I actually like Bucky more than Evans in this spot, which I think is maybe a little unique, but not a big deal. And then obviously I'm into the Shipleys and the Carters. I'm actually much less into Michael Carter than really a lot of these guys. I get it. I trust me, I totally get it. But he had the equivalent of the full workload last week. Like the matchup is fine. Like I don't think we should just be saying San Francisco is like some great spot all of the sudden. Like it's fine. Like the Lions lit them up, but like this is the Arizona Cardinals, right?
Yeah, right.
This is not the Detroit Lions. What did he have? Like 8 fantasy points last week, 9, 10 DraftKings points. It's like 2 targets, right? 13 carries. He was efficient. I still kind of think Michael Carter's not bad at football. I think he's a fine play. I don't think Michael Carter should be like exponentially more owned than a lot of the other running backs on the slate. Like in terms of our, run the Sims and on RotoGrinders. I just don't think he should be like that much more. Like, why is he so much more owned than Grindo? Why is he so much more owned than Madison? Whatever. That's kind of my problem with him. I do want to hit just super quick. We got some news that's relevant to the slate. I don't know how relevant. I'm undecided, but it's got me shook a little to my core. Trey Lance is playing for the Dallas Cowboys. And I saw some whoever posted on Twitch, I promise. We talked a little bit about our game stacks. We'll do that. We'll answer that question as well. Inactives are coming out, and we got Trey Lance news. Does the fact that Trey Lance is starting, obviously no CeeDee Lamb, change anything? Are you really into Trey Lance at first take? Are you like, oh my God, we know he sucks? Like, what do you think about the fact that Trey Lance is now opened up as a punt quarterback?
I mean, it doesn't matter that he sucks as long as he's good for fantasy. And he had this conversation with Davis on Friday, like apparently a preseason hero. But this is against a pretty good, like the Commanders defense has been really good in recent weeks.
Yes.
So it's not exactly the preseason game that he was excelling in previously. I wouldn't say that I'm super into it. He's 4,700. If he were 4,000, I'd like it a little bit better. I'll probably have a little bit. I'll probably have like 5% Trey Lance just because he can run a little bit. You never know. But no, I wouldn't say that I'm like going out of my way to load up on Trey Lance. How about you?
No. If it were 2 years ago, buddy, this whole show would be about Trey Lance. I was a slappy. He's just not very good, and the Cowboys are not very good. You need him to run. Obviously, right? Like what you're playing him for is to like a rushing touchdown and to run for whatever. And everybody in the chat as well as TJ, yes, keep the actives and inactives coming. We'll make sure Juwan Johnson is in. RIP Dallin Holker, so we don't have to talk about him later. Man, I was really excited to talk about a 25-year-old rookie or whatever. Darnell Mooney is officially inactive. Hunter Henry is inactive, so we'll get to some of that game. We haven't talked about the Bills too much yet, and definitely haven't talked about the Patriots. Romeo Doubs is inactive again. Not sure how much the Packers wide receivers matter. We've done this song and dance multiple times with somebody being out, but maybe it does. And what else? There was another one. It was just Lance starting. So nothing crazy notable there. Did any of those like ins and outs? Maybe Hunter Henry opening up in Austin Hooper or something like that. Is that intriguing to you?
Yeah, I think it's intriguing enough. Austin Hooper, like playing with his usual quarterback, he's been like not bad anyway. He's been getting some work, so just gets a little bit more. I actually think that is pretty impactful. That's probably one of the bigger ones. I do think Dontavian Wicks is once again playable with Romeo Doubs out. Like that does, like he's always just the guy that fills in regardless of who's out of the other three. So I would say those two in particular stand out to me. Let's see, who else?
Christian Watson is playing.
We talked about Kadero Hodge already.
Yeah. Kadero. I think Hooper, amongst the current injury news, I think just because of the tight end position, we're really lacking for tight end plays, right? We'll talk about Brock Bowers, but at tight end, it's like this is the least I've wanted to play Trey McBride in a while. Maybe that's totally silly, right? It could absolutely be silly. Maybe this is the week he scores 2 touchdowns, right? They use this one as the week to feed him touchdowns. But George Kittle is questionable in the afternoon. This doesn't feel like a particularly fun Jonnu spot. Travis Kelce, right? The list is not great. It does look like Dallas Goedert is activated. Which doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me, but I guess he needs to get some reps in before the playoffs. It's like Pitts, Zach Ertz, like there isn't a lot at tight end. So I do think Austin Hooper, right? Maybe you're going to play some I do like Terrell Shavers from the Bills. Maybe you're going to play somebody like that. It's like, well, I might as well, if the Bills are going to score a bunch of points and play their backup defense, maybe this is a good spot for Austin Hooper. I think he's pretty notable.
Yeah, no, you definitely that one stands out. And like obviously has a lot of reps with Drake May. Everything looks good for Austin Hooper. So I will be playing. I'm still like, so apparently Curtis Samuel is active. I've been kind of waiting on the Bills inactives. Are the Chiefs playing at 1 also, or are
Afternoon.
All right, that's because I'm also kind of, those are the teams that in particular I'm like kind of waiting on the inactives. Is somebody going to open up? If we have like Juju Smith-Schuster and Justin Watson out, suddenly some of those Chiefs receivers look pretty good. But with Curtis Samuel active, it's a little bit more of a dicey situation with the Bills receivers. Do you think Tyrell Shavers is still like, is he going to be one of the starters? We have Amari Cooper out. Is Khalil Shakir out?
I don't think he should impact Shavers because Shakir's in the slot. I don't have the Shakir news. I do like Shavers. I will say the Curtis Samuel thing threw me a little bit. Let's see. Wouldn't be surprised. The latest, this is just search, Twitter search is kind of a disaster nowadays, but Khalil Shakir spent a lot of time warming up on the field and going through a workout. I wouldn't be surprised. This is weird wording, a lot of double negatives. Basically, she's saying not sure. Like Shakir went through a bigger workout before the game than he would normally do. Like kind of like that was his game in the warm up is what she's insinuating. So maybe not much Shakir, but like you said, Curtis Samuel playing. They have a bunch of wide receivers still, and it is Mitch Trubisky and possibly Mike White. But it is a good matchup. That's this just feels to me like we can microanalyze like who's active, inactive, whatever, and we should do the Chiefs after this. But it's just like, isn't this exactly when you play Tyrell Shavers like 75 or 80% of the snaps? Like that's just what that feels. So I do still like him quite a bit. I'm not sure if I'm going to play him, but I still think he's the standout. It could be Curtis Samuel though. Like sometimes it is just like they're like, yeah, you haven't played much and you're the veteran. Like, let's make it the Curtis Samuel show. I think he's like an interesting, like Millie dart, but I do still prioritize Shavers, I think.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, Curtis Samuel projects better, will probably get more ownership than Shavers, I would think. Maybe depends where you look there, but both in play, neither like a absolute slam dunk.
Agreed. What about the Chiefs? What are you? So, because they're in the afternoon, people are going to be like, I need to wait for actives and inactives, as you mentioned. Is there anything like you said, specific to certain guys you're looking for in terms of are they active or inactive? And then who is the biggest benefit to you? Who are you looking to play if things shake out that way?
I mean, ideally, both Juju Smith-Schuster and Justin Watson would be inactive, and then we can just be more confident that we're going to be able to see some of the backups. Because I think even if both are active, it could just be a really, really gross split with like Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson, Nico Remigio, Justin Ross, like just so many gross kind of Chiefs players who are none of them playing full time, playing the full game. So ideally, we'd get both Juju Smith-Schuster and Justin Watson out, and then suddenly I would have a lot of interest in, assuming he's active, Justin Ross I would have a lot of interest in if he's active. Nico Remigio I'd have a lot of interest in. He's the one that Davis is a huge fan of. Nico Remigio, people that I've talked to already, he's a huge fan of Nico Remigio. Scott Barrett a big fan of Justin Ross. So I'm kind of like, both seem like fine dart throws, like nothing really more than that to me. But I think both are like interesting dart throws, particularly if the other Chiefs receivers are out. I wouldn't say that anybody becomes like a must-have in any scenario because it's still just such an unknown. We don't know if anybody's going to get a full workload. They're not going to be playing with Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, Carson Wentz a capable backup, but I don't know. Do you have any Chiefs that you're super enthusiastic about?
I feel the exact same way that you. I don't have passion for either Remigio or Justin Ross. I understand why people. It's like a mom and dad. Right. Mom likes this and dad likes this. Who do I choose? Right. Like which side do I go with? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll, let's do Christmas Eve at mom's and Christmas at dad's and get a little bit of both. I don't have a big stance between the two of them. I don't particularly think either of them are very good. So, but that's all the backups, right? But I like if Tyrell Shavers. I think Tyrell Shavers is better than those guys. I have been a little more wooed by the Remigio case. Shout out Davis and the Remigio people. I think he has more of a chance. We've done this, Justin Ross.
Yeah.
Dog and pony show for a long time. And, it's not that he can't have a big game today. It's certainly possible, but I think there's more of the unknown of, oh man, he's the go-to guy on the offense with Remigio today. I think that's in the range of outcomes. I'm not so sure it is for Justin Ross, but of course I could be totally wrong about that. Like Ross could go 6 for 101 and I would not be shocked today, but I think Remigio is just a little more intriguing in terms of the mystery box.
Yeah. And I just want to note that I don't think RotoGrinders or like other sites to look at even have a projection for Justin Ross as of right now, where Nico Remigio does have like a decent projection already. So Justin Ross really we're galaxy brain in there. Nico Remigio seems a little bit more likely to have a real role. Damon Troy in chat also brings up Peyton Hendershot is probably the best Chiefs option.
I love Pendershot.
Everybody calls him Pendershot. Yeah.
I love that. That's so good. But yes, Peyton Hendershot is on the Chiefs. Travis Kelce obviously out. Noah Gray is not like expected to be inactive. I don't think he's even questionable, but I think the expectation is there's Noah Gray is a big piece of their real starting offense that they're not going to play Noah Gray any meaningful snaps today. But again, just another guy to look out for. Like he could be a healthy scratch too. They just can't healthy scratch every skill. Like we're only focused on the skill players for fantasy. They have a 53-man roster. Like they also want to sit out Chris Jones and they want to sit out offensive linemen. It's like some of these veteran guys that we're like, why would they play today? It's like, well, because they only have 53 man. It's only a 53-man roster. Someone has to play, and you only have so many guys on game day. So that's kind of my concern with like the Chiefs. Ultimately, is they weren't very good for fantasy with Patrick Mahomes and good players. Now we're gonna have Carson Wentz and the bad players playing with other bad players against like a motivated Broncos team, right? The Broncos, this is it. They need to win this game, and the Broncos defense is fine, right? We haven't been like, oh my God, got to go. They're not the Panthers, so I think at one of these like crappy teams in terms of have backups in. The Chiefs are like lower on my totem pole, if you will, amongst that than the other guys. What are you more interested in them? I just don't really love the spot that much.
I don't love it that much. Also, the Broncos are a good defense and they're motivated and like it's a tough spot. So yeah, I'm not super into it. I also just wanted to touch on Kevin Saul says, are we sure Shavers plays? He was elevated for third. Yeah, I don't see him projected some places. So I think Tyrell Shavers was it looked like he was going to be called up, but I've been looking on Twitter trying to find confirmation that he was elevated to the roster because he can't be elevated off the practice squad, so he'd have to be signed, I believe. And I have not seen anything suggesting that. And I look at some places and he is not projected. So
everybody's asking all the things I read is, so did we elevate? Did we sign Shavers? Is he playing? And so no, I mean, it's certainly possible he's not, which does then in turn make some of those other wide receivers more Curtis Samuel in particular, more interesting.
Feels like this should be easier to look up, like team transactions like this. They don't always make it that easy. So I'm still looking around, but I think that is a good note because
yes,
I'm not sure he can play today.
Kevin, shout out Kevin. It's so strange because even like you go to Google News and it's like the first article is Tyrell Shavers. It's like a family here. He's like, like praising the Bills.
I'm literally on Google News right now. Yeah.
And I can't even find if he's going to play. He's going to an hour before the game. But yeah, Shavers isn't even an option on DK. So combo over that.
Oh, is that right?
That's not true.
I thought he was in there at like 3,000, but
yeah, he's definitely 3K on DraftKings. But let's move on. The point of all of that, I think these guys are not like slam dunk mega priorities. Shavers, Remigio, right? Pendershot, like all these guys, they're fine. They're filler pieces. Erik, I think, asked about the Seahawks, and quickly let's talk about the Rams. And as well as he was asking about, I think Geno has some form of incentives as well today. I can look it up quickly, but nobody's playing for anything in this game. Seahawks are eliminated. The Rams are resting their starters. The Jimmy G show today, but I know you're a preseason DFS guy, and the player for the Rams that got the steamiest preseason of all time because he was the next Puka Nacua is going to play today and has the chance to play in the Puka Nacua role, and that is Jordan Whittington. I think he's the most intriguing punt wide receiver because he's on the Rams, and I know it's Jimmy G, but Sean McVay, like I trust in Sean McVay, even in a tough spot, and he's going to get the ball in some form or fashion. It also could be Tyler Johnson, but I think we have some evidence to say it's maybe a little more Whittington. But what about the Rams resting starters and just this game? Do you have any interest in the Seahawks?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Jordan Whittington. Totally with you. I think he is my favorite play of the Rams receivers. Just looks really interesting. He's only 3,300. Should get some run and like has looked pretty good. Like he's not like amazing, but I don't know. I think he's my favorite of the Rams. We can also play some Tutu Atwell at 3,800. I think is Tyler Johnson still? Yeah, Tyler Johnson's 3,000. He's in play. I think that they are one of the better places to look for some value here. I mean, the implied team total is 15.5. So maybe I'm overstating it a little bit, how good they are to look for value, but they have at least a few options. I don't know that I'd want to play more than one of them in a lineup, I guess.
Yep. I think that makes a ton of sense. Just super quickly, John is saying in the chat, I just made $1,000 this morning, saying I'll give you $1,000 if you can find Shavers on DraftKings. I'm looking at them. So type in Tyrell Shavers. He's $3,000 wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills on DraftKings. I'll DM you my Venmo so you can shoot me $1,000 today. Good day. We got a good day.
Well done.
Locked inside with the snow and making $1,000 because I can type in Shavers to the search chat on DraftKings. Sorry, John. There's low hanging fruit. I couldn't help myself. Let's see some more questions. Let's hit some more questions. So shout out J3 said, I think I read Geno needs 185 passing yards. I have somewhere on here Geno. Yep, that's correct. Buddy. 185 plus passing yards for Geno Smith today for $2 million.
No way. Okay, yeah. So that's guaranteed.
Okay, he's throwing for 185. Now, 185 doesn't mean shit for DFS, but he's throwing for 185 today. Like that's happening. So lock that one in. And I guess you could say that makes things more interesting, right? And we have clear runbacks on the Rams side, whether it's Whittington, whether it's Blake Corum, whether it's Tyler Johnson. You want to dive into the tight ends, go for it. Not for me, but I don't think it's crazy to like Geno JSN or Geno Metcalf. Like what greater week 18 thing would be DK Metcalf, goes Undertaker.gif and actually has, a good game for the first time in a long time. I think it's intriguing. I don't know that I'll land there, but Geno's definitely throwing for, 200 yards in this game. So bank your 8 points. You just need a few more to win some tournaments.
I'm convinced. I'm going to take some shots, I think. Although like this is like many of the incentives where it's like, okay, so he gets to his incentive and then is that good enough? No, it's not. It's not good enough if he just gets to the incentive. But usually if you get to 200 yards, you're probably scoring a touchdown or two. So I don't hate the idea.
I agree. I like it more now than I did when we started the show. Let's see. I want to get some more comments. Donnie asks, are you guys into this? Is a good one to our running backs that like we would play on every other slate that we haven't even talked about yet on this slate. J.K. Dobbins, the Chargers are like quasi motivated. They're playing for some seeding, but I don't think they really care that much about the seeding. But they are going to play. They're starters, so maybe they do. And Harbaugh strikes me as go ahead, TJ.
I think from everything I've read, I think they really care about the seeding. They're going to go full tilt because if they win, they play the Texans, and if they lose, they play the Ravens.
Houston versus Baltimore, yeah, is a definitely a huge. Ask Steelers fans how they feel this morning about that potential change in matchup. But right there, they're going to be on the road. They're going to be, they're in the playoffs and they're going to be on the road. But it is a big difference. So does that make you more interested in J.K. Dobbins? And then we did just talk about Geno's definitely throwing for 185, but once he gets to 185, do they turn it over to Zach Charbonnet and just say, ride this out against the Rams backups? Do you like either of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, J.K. Dobbins came back last week, immediately had 19 carries, ran 33% of the routes, saw one target. J.K. Dobbins just looks like he's back. Like he was already back last week in his first game. returning from injury. Yeah, I think looks like a really nice spot. They are touchdown favorites over the Raiders. I think J.K. Dobbins looks like a really strong play. So that's a good call out there. And then, sorry, who was the second running back you brought up? I'm reading chat, but it's
Sharps. Sorry, Sharps.
Oh, less interested in Charbonnet. I think he is probably fine. He's doesn't really stand out from a point per dollar perspective, from a projection standpoint. He's 6,700. I think like not a priority for me. I guess I'll say that. Like in a 150 set, I'll probably get to a little bit, but not somebody that I'm really going out of my way to play Charbonnet, because we have so many value options, and I'm not sure that he's going to outscore them.
That's the problem. He's not an option for me today. J.K. Dobbins is an option.
Oh yeah,
for me today. I think Kenny McIntosh is going to play plenty for Seattle today. I don't think this is whatever week 4. Ken Walker sits out and Sharps plays 99% of the snaps. We're not in that territory, and he's a fine player, and the matchup is fine. But Zach Charbonnet is not. This isn't Achan or somebody like that where like it's fine if he's only playing 60%. You need the work for Zach Charbonnet. That's why you like him, is because you're projecting a lot of work. And I think there's some fragility to his overall volume projection, because Kenny McIntosh was playing last game. And I think this is a spot to, split the work, or 60-40, or even like 70-30. I don't want that price on Zach Charbonnet, because like you said, there's so many other running backs. It's not that he can't get home. It's not that he can't score 18 points or whatever. It's that I can find those points in many different places on this slate. Zach's, I don't think, like, especially you get to the afternoon and maybe you got dusted off a little bit, right? So you played Shavers, and he's not, he's in sweats on the sideline. Like, don't play him, by the way. Something bad happened on the early slate. Like, I don't think Kenny McIntosh is a crazy dart, like a total, 0.5% dart throw on this slate, and just say, why do they need to play Sharps? Right? There's no reason to play Sharps. It's not a priority, but just thinking to like swaps and stuff later, look for the Chiefs inactives, maybe play McIntosh instead of Michael Carter. Like do some of those things, I think, on the afternoon if it doesn't go well. Yeah. I don't want to talk about Terrell Shavers anymore. I'm sad.
He's not. I'm pretty sure he's not playing. Yeah,
he's not playing. Yeah. So we'll get that out of the way. I do just want to say, are you now prioritizing any more Bills wide receivers?
It's, I guess, Curtis Samuel's in play, Matt Collins is in play, but nobody becomes like a must play.
Mamba says, don't know if my guy is in chat, but somebody in chat, last week, do you recall that the AJ Brown discourse was everybody was obsessed with AJ Brown, and you have to play AJ Brown, and but he's saying the chat helped him out with maybe don't be so firm on AJ Brown, made some swaps and made 20K. Shout out. Mamba. Awesome. That's amazing. Miguel says, is Higbee the clear one in LA? No. That is a total timeshare. I don't know do you have any like projection for this week? I don't have that in front of me just yet, but I just don't have interest in the Rams tight ends. Maybe I should, but Tyler Higbee's come back, and they've played 3 tight ends every game.
Yeah, I'm looking at last week's route shares, and it was 24% for Tyler Higbee, 15% for Tyler Long, 24% for Colby Parkinson, 15% for Davis Allen. That is just not a situation that I'm interested in playing in DFS.
Absolutely disgusting. Same for me. Let's see. Thoughts on Tony Pollard. Erik, I know, Erik, we love you. We appreciate you hanging out with us. We just talked about Tony Pollard. I know you're doing your grinding and you're putting your teams together, and I know you're listening, but you're half listening. We just scroll back like 10 minutes or so. We just talked about Tony Pollard. BT Jenkins. I don't think I can. I don't think I can say your name without getting fired on the air. But
I always favorite, say it.
Okay. favorite. It wouldn't be the worst thing I've ever said live on YouTube. Favorite Colts wide receiver. Let's talk about this game a little bit. I think this is my favorite game, like game stack that doesn't involve the anarchy of week 18. Jags Colts. Clearly no weather concerns, but no motivation help on either side, and I don't really trust either team, either coach. But like in terms of Joe Flacco is playing, We have Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, and Alec Pierce. We have Brian Thomas Jr. on the other side for a very clear, pass game type stack. But also Jonathan Taylor looks pretty good. We haven't really talked about him because Bijan is a little more of our priority. What do you think about this game? Favorite Colts wide receiver? And let's just break this one down real quick.
Yeah, I mean, why not take the offense that's facing the Jaguars? Like the offense that has not changed. It's still the same good offense. I mean, not good, but like decent offense. We have one game now where Josh Downs performed really poorly with Joe Flacco last week, and suddenly the entire field is off him. Like the prices come up a little bit. He had a really bad game last week. He only saw like 4 targets, but in the previous 4 games with Joe Flacco, he saw 40 targets. So like we know that Joe Flacco has targeted him like still overall 44 targets over the past 5 games with Joe Flacco as a starter. And now the field is looking like they're probably going to play more Michael Pittman than Josh Downs. I like Josh Downs once again. I think he's better than Michael Pittman. I think looks like a really strong stack with Joe Flacco. And I think Joe Flacco stacks make sense. You can also do double stacks if you want to play both Pittman and Downs. I think you can do that. If you want to throw Alec Pierce in there, I think that is reasonable as well. I think that it makes a lot of sense to go to some Colt stacks. I guess part of the reason, so Pittman actually projects better than Downs. 90% route participation last week for Pittman, 60% for Downs. I think Downs actually had like an in-game injury at some point, but he's active this week. 77.5% route participation last week for Alec Pierce. 8 targets in that game for Pierce. I think all the Colts, like double stacking Joe Flacco, makes a lot of sense to me on this slate.
Do you have any interest in the Mac Jones side? And what about Jonathan Taylor?
Jonathan Taylor, yes. Mac Jones, no. I think Jonathan Taylor looks really good. He's been great in recent weeks. He's been getting a lot of work. He's still projects really well and kind of contrarian, right? Like he's getting, like single digit ownership for Jonathan Taylor. I think that makes a lot of sense. He's been awesome in a nice matchup also. Sign me up for some Jonathan Taylor. I don't think I would play the onslaught. Would you consider doing Flacco double plus Jonathan Taylor?
No, I don't think so. I think the pricing is a little rough. Once you toss, right, the perk of the Flacco thing is like I can get Bijan, like I can get Bucky, I could get Evans, I can get Brian Thomas on the other side. I could get Bowers with that double stack. The problem once you toss JT in there is like, I mean, it's possible the Colts score 1 million points today. I don't think it's crazy is what I'm saying, but it's not super clean. Like I played the Bucks onslaught last week and I felt awesome about it. Right. Like, but Jonathan Taylor will catch some passes with Joe Flacco, but it's not like he's not Alvin Kamara. He's not Achane. He's not Bucky, where like, it's kind of a big part of his projection. He got 30. He's getting 30 carries a game right now. Like that's why you're playing him, which kind of takes away from Downs and those other guys. That game last week also, I'm not trying to look too much at last week, but it does give you an indication of like the Colts. The vibes around the Colts are all time bad. I don't know if you saw Pat McAfee go on his tirade about the Colts. Oh man, unhinged Pat McAfee going ham on the Colts. Just go check it out. I think it's still up on his Twitter. And then DeForest Buckner coming out and talking about how like AR is, he re-signed because he wanted to play with AR.
Right.
And he's like,
I still believe in you.
Yeah. But he's got to figure it out. Like we got to grow up basically at a certain point. And then the defense last week was the most abominable thing I've ever seen in my entire life. The Colts defense last week. Drew Lock scored 40 fantasy points on these guys, throwing a bunch of checkdowns. They would throw a check down. Malik Neighbors would break 7 tackles and run for a 60-yard. He did it twice. He took a screen to the house for 50 yards, and he took a hitch to the house for like 1 million yards. I'm worried, not so worried about like the Colts vibes for their offense as a stack, but I think it makes this game like a little like I'm not so sure that their defense is very good at this point. And I know the Jags defense isn't good. So in a dome with Flacco at quarterback, I think this is my favorite game stack. And I agree with you. Downs is still my favorite wide receiver. I'm not backing down because of one bad Josh Downs game. Like it's fine. It happens. But I actually prefer Alec Pierce to Michael Pittman.
Interesting. Okay.
I will say that I just like the, like you said, if I'm getting all the Alec Pierce routes in a good spot we know like Michael Pittman is not catching a 70-yard touchdown. Okay. It knock on wood.
Right.
Yeah, it'll happen now. But Alec Pierce, like that's how he gets home, is the big plays. Like what better way to pair? How does Joe Flacco get to 350 and 4? Well, Alec Pierce catches a 75-yard touchdown as opposed to like dink and dunk Michael Pittman, So I really like the Pierce Downs double with Flacco a lot. And then BTJ is just such an awesome bring back on the other side. He's kind of like Neighbors of last week.
Very straightforward. Yep.
All right. Let's see here. What have we missed so far? We've talked about, even some of our favorite guys that are not in the week 18 brain.
Miles Sanders. A lot of people have been asking about Miles Sanders, and we didn't bring him up when talking about the cheap running backs. I think he's worth bringing up. Like Miles Sanders probably will have a pretty strong workload today with no Chuba Hubbard. He's only 4,000. The matchup with Atlanta is fine, not a bad matchup. So I think Miles Sanders, good play.
I like him fine. Yeah. If I'm willing to talk about Raheem Blackshear, I have to be willing to talk about Miles Sanders. Yeah, active today, kind of unexpected. He's going to share the work for sure with either one or two guys today. But
nice job not mentioning Raheem Blackshear after you said we're not going to talk about Raheem Blackshear.
Voldemort.
You didn't mention him.
We call
him.
Job. He's when they fail for me the week before, they're Voldemort. We try not to. He who shall not be named. That is Raheem Blackshear. But yeah, I think Miles Sanders makes for a pretty good play. I also like the late news element of Miles Sanders. Everybody's been planning, right? You're planning for Corum, you're planning for Michael Carter, you're planning for all these guys, and then poof, Miles Sanders comes up in a game that we really like. We really like the Falcons. We really like we know Carolina can score. They score every single week, and now we get that running back for $4,000. I think he makes for a really, really good tournament play today. I think you and I, one spot we haven't discussed yet that both you and I are on is we've talked more about Trey Lance, but the other side of that game is pretty intriguing. Like if you want to play some of these value spots and you're looking for somewhere to spend up that isn't Mike Evans, that isn't Brock Bowers, isn't Bijan Robinson, like, can't I just take the points with Jaden Daniels against the Cowboys? Like that seems good, like Jaden Daniels scores 5 touchdowns today. Why would anyone be surprised by that? Maybe a couple. Terry McLaurin bounce back, right? He was in. AJ Terrell had him in absolute jail last weekend. Could not do anything. Olamide Zaccheaus is going nuts. Zach Ertz is going nuts. This feels like against the Cowboys. This feels like the Daniels McLaurin bounce back spot. They can get things right before they head into the playoffs.
Yeah, and McLaurin coming in at 7.5% ownership at RG, which is higher than I've seen elsewhere for McLaurin.
I'd be shocked if it's that high.
Pretty low. I really like that. That's one of my go-to stacks today is Jaden Daniels. Terry McLaurin can just do a single stack there. Obviously, Olamide Zaccheaus looked really good last week. Looked like he was actually a focal point of the offense. You can play Zach Ertz as part of the offense, but I think just a single stack with Terry McLaurin also makes a lot of sense for the Commanders. And it is a game. I know we had some chatter earlier that they weren't going to play to win. All indications are that they are playing to win this game. The Packers can pass them in the playoff seeding if they lose and the Packers win. And Dan Quinn said that we're going to go after this as hard as we can. The seeding part of it we think is really important. So I'm expecting them to go all out to win. So yeah, I love Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin. We are very much on the same page there against the Cowboys in particular. Just like a great spot. They're motivated. They're just a really strong fantasy offense already. So yeah, that's one of my favorite offenses this week. TJ says that's my favorite stack of the week. We're all on the same page there.
This is another one just like the Chargers, but I like this a lot better than the Chargers. I just love Dobbins. That Eagles, Rams. Assuming
100%.
Hurts is active, you would way rather the Rams.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's not even close, right? Like you either you're playing a top 5 team in the NFL in the first round on the road, or like you said, you're going to go play the Rams. I believe the Bucks technically have a shot at the 3 seed. So the 3 seed, Baltimore's locked in now to the 3 seed. But if so, why does the 3 seed matter? Washington is either going to be the 6 seed or the 7. They're in the playoffs for sure, but they are either going to be. They have a rough math, right? They have a 70% chance at the 6th seed. Why do they want the 6th seed? It's because the Bucks are 59% to get the 3 seed, meaning those two teams will match up. And if they don't, even if the Bucks don't get it, right? The Bucks are the team you want to play, okay, in the first round. If you're one of these teams, if they don't get it, you play the Rams. Would you rather play either of those two teams or the Eagles in Philly?
Right.
And they are as motivated as anyone in this game. They're in the playoffs. So like if it's over, right? If it's 35-0 heading into the fourth quarter, sure, Jaden Daniels is coming out. But I have a feeling that Jaden Daniels scored a couple fantasy points if they scored 35 points heading into the fourth quarter. I don't think it's absurd to say that the Cowboys scored 2 touchdowns or whatever in this game. I mean, I don't know what their team total is, but it's probably something north of that. So I think Washington hangs a huge number here, and I think that flows through Jaden Daniels in this spot. Somebody mentioned earlier, that's why somebody mentioned Chris Rodriguez earlier. I was really hoping it would be a Chris Rodriguez week, but the stars just haven't aligned for him. Eckler back, and they're playing to win, so he's gonna get on the field. He's going to get maybe he gets the fourth quarter, right? He gets the Antonio Gibson 60 yards on the final drive or whatever. I think it's if you like B-Rob, maybe more than I do. I think it's B-Rob or it's Daniels, McClaren. I think Ertz is in play. I don't think chasing Zacchaeus is crazy, or De'Ami Brown, right? I don't think those are crazy. It's not for me really this week. My priority is Daniels, McClaren.
Yep. Same page.
Some other spots maybe that we have not yet talked about. Do you have anything, like literally anything in the Packers-Bears game? Anything?
I don't think so. Keenan Allen. Scott brought this could be Keenan Allen's, like some of his quotes kind of indicate this could be his final NFL game. He might retire after the season.
Oh, I had not seen
So I think that's sort of an interesting note that Keenan, like he's 6,000. He's been just like playing really well recently anyway. And this could be his final NFL game. So yeah, I guess I do have. I'm going to force my way to a little bit of Keenan Allen. Not like a huge priority, but he's getting virtually zero ownership, and I don't know. I think that's enough incentive. If he's, maybe he's told the team at around 2% ownership. Maybe he's told the team this is going to be my final game. I'm hanging it up after this. And maybe he gets peppered a little bit. It's not the same thing as a Kobe Bryant, where you can dictate the entire game and everybody's going to try to get you the ball. But like, I don't know. There's a little bit more incentive there.
Yeah, definitely. Maria does mention Wicks. Yeah, we called Wicks.
Yep.
Thank you for calling that out. And then Eric says Josh Jacobs. Yeah, I mean the Packers are going to play to win. So the Washington conversation kind of bleeds into this one. Why is Green Bay playing to win? Is because they're hoping Washington loses, right? If Washington loses, Green Bay is going to play Philly if Washington wins today. So they don't want to play Philly. So that they need to go, but they're probably going to, right? But the Bears are the Bears, but there's talent on the Bears. They're in a tougher spot than Washington is, I think, against Dallas today. But nonetheless, they're going to play. If you want to play Josh Jacobs, go for it. I just can't bring myself to play Josh Jacobs over Bijan and JT and Bucky and all these other guys. So just not much. A really gross game. I mean, that game's pretty gross. We got to talk about here as we start to wind down. Thank you for, who was it? Javon, the night game. My God. Been so wrapped up in the chaos of week 18 on FanDuel, the Sunday night football game. Detroit, Minnesota for the 1 seed. Loser gets the 5 seed in the NFC. What a crime. I don't ever want to hear any more shit about the seeding in the college football playoff when one of these two teams is going to be a 5 seed in the NFL playoffs and the other gets a bye. These are two of the top 5 teams in all of football, and one of them is going to be go on the road for all of the playoffs. Nonetheless, what a fun game. Holy cow. This game, I'm so excited to watch this one later tonight. And from a fantasy perspective, it is, of course, on the FanDuel main slate and not the DraftKings main slate. And it should be a big part of your strategy, I think, for the FanDuel main slate. What's your favorite way to play this? How are you attacking it? Because everybody feels in play. Are you playing in this game? Yeah, I think you're probably playable because it looks like it's going to be a whole lot of fireworks.
Yeah, my favorite way to play it is to play all of it. Sam Darnold and Jared Goff, 2 of the 3 highest projected quarterbacks on the slate. Jahmyr Gibbs, the highest projected running back on the slate. Aaron Jones, only 7,300, so not as highly projected, but still in play. Justin Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown, the top 2 projected wide receivers on the slate. TJ Hawkinson and Sam Darnold, top 4 tight ends on the slate. Sam Laporta, not Darnold. Just everything looks fantastic for this slate. I think probably the biggest priority is Jahmyr Gibbs. Just his role without David Montgomery has been incredible. Like I said, he's the highest projected running back on the slate. He's not the most expensive running back on the slate. Just looks like a cash game lock and a strong tournament play. But yeah, every single part of it. But both these defenses have struggled against quarterbacks over the past 5 weeks. They both been top 5 matchups or so against quarterbacks. So how am I playing it? If in FanDuel lineups, I think that it is the strongest game to target. Just load up on Vikings Lions
easily. I'm gonna play. I don't play much FanDuel, to be completely honest. I dip in and out when I kind of feel like it. Total vibes based FanDuel player, but the vibes are good today. Okay, that game I want to play because I want parts of that game. I know it's popular, but I like fun. Okay, so sue me if they're popular. That game I would like to enjoy. I'm going to enjoy it regardless. But I do think you called out the part to me that's the most intriguing. And like Luis in the chat says, he was talking about Shipley as it pertains to this. But I mean, I love Jahmyr Gibbs. This is not the world's best Jahmyr Gibbs spot. The Minnesota defense, they're a good run defense. They play a lot of, they're going to bring a lot of pressure packages and stuff, which are not awesome for running backs catching passes. He's fine. I know he projects amazing. I like Bijan better than him. I think JT is in the same conversation as him. And then we have all these punt guys. You have Bucky. You have a lot of running backs that are playable. I really like the pass game on both sides of this one. I definitely like the Minnesota pass game better than the run game. Aaron Jones banged up and it's a smash fantasy play anyway when he isn't. But buddy, Darnold doubles with some form of Lions on the other side. Pick your poison. I think JMO is my favorite wide receiver, my favorite play on the Lions. I mean, Amon-Ra is awesome, Laporta is awesome, but if I think about a guy, doing the old shout out Smiz, the knees and elbows against the Brian Flores blitz packages, it's Jameson Williams to me in this one. Hit a couple home runs. We know he's going to be out there. He had the big game again last week. He's just been awesome, and he never really gets the kind of respect from a DFS perspective that necessarily I think he deserves. He has as much ceiling as just about anybody on this slate, and on a touchdown scoring side, I think he's really good, and the matchup is really good for him. So kind of like a Darnold, JJ, whether it's Addison or Hawk, and JMO is my preferred build from this one.
Yeah, and I'm play it all different ways. I would say they all just look so good, but I think that makes sense.
Anything else on that game?
Skull, go Vikings.
Yeah. Are you wanting have you done any playoff best ball drafts or anything?
It'll be bad for my playoff best ball drafts if the Vikings win. I'm still cheering for them, but I've been building as though it's going to be Detroit getting the 1 seed for weeks now, and I was like, oh, okay, was not expecting this.
The Vikings are it was the worst priced shit I've ever seen in my entire life. In playoff best ball drafts with the Vikings. So I was I have so many Viking stacks, but with Darnold as my only quarterback, because I was like, this is stupid. This doesn't make any sense that he's a 7th round pick. Drafting? Yeah, what are we doing? And now they're all gonna die because if they win today. So I'm torn. But we want a good football game nonetheless. I think we've hit. Oh, somebody asked. Let's do this. Favorite cheap plays. We'll do favorite, kind of like cheap plays, and then we'll of course do our flag plants. One more caveat. Favorite, the crappy wide receivers, running backs, whatever. We'll just kind of go down the list a little bit of our top options amongst the Remigios and the no longer Tyrell Shavers, maybe the Mac Hollins. Somebody mentioned Mac Hollins has a 75-yard incentive, and they do love him in Buffalo. The cheap wide receivers, cheap running backs, we'll hit some of those, and then we'll hit our flag plants as we usually do before we get to crunch time.
You want to start with just wide receivers?
Let's do the cheap wide receivers first.
I think Jordan Whittington is probably my favorite cheap wide receiver, just 3,300, should be super involved. No guarantee there, but should be involved. I think that he's like actually fairly talented and not projected for a ton of ownership. So I think probably Jordan Whittington number 1 for me. Debating like Kadero Hodge is kind of up there for me, actually. Just like great matchup. Again, they seem to be kind of forcing the ball to him last week. Now we don't have Darnell Mooney, so I kind of think we go back to it with Kadero Hodge. I would probably put him next after Jordan Whittington. Tutu Atwell. I don't know that I'm going to the super cheap gross wide receivers that much. I do think like Johnny Wilson sort of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think those are the ones that I like. It starts with Whittington and Hodge for me. But I think I'm going to a lot of mid-range. Like we talked about the Colts guys paying up for like Josh Downs, just like paying the mid-range kind of guys. Curtis Samuel, I guess, with Tyrell Shavers not being an option, and Matt Collins. Actually, somebody brought up Matt Collins.
Yep.
Apparently has a contract incentive. I actually think that does matter. Like I think that people rely too much on the narratives in general, but like Matt Collins is already an intriguing play for
without Shavers, he could play most of the game, the whole game.
He could. It's weird because he's also like he's been a pretty big part of their offense, so it doesn't really make sense for them to play him the whole game. But maybe the contract incentive is enough to like if they were thinking about sitting him in the second half, maybe they do play him a bit more. So I think Hollins actually looks pretty intriguing to me. Who are your favorites of the cheap guys?
It's actually tough. I thought I always get myself excited for week 18 for all these gross guys, and then we get to it, and you're like, none of them really look that good. None of them really look all that good. We didn't talk a lot about the Eagles guys, but I do think the Eagles guys, like you mentioned, my only problem is what I really prefer is when I have like conviction about one of them being kind of like better or what have you. I understand why people think Johnny Wilson like is a thing. I know he's cute, right? He's like 6'7", 240 or whatever as a wide receiver. So that's nice. But like it's still going to be Dotson. I assume they're still going to keep running Dotson out there because who gives a shit if he gets hurt? He doesn't do anything for the offense anyway. Anais Smith is like no diff. He's just like the small slot receiver as opposed to Johnny Wilson, which maybe could make some sense with Kenny Pickett. So Paris Campbell, right? Is Paris Campbell? Does everybody love Paris Campbell in Philly like they love Matt Collins in Buffalo? I don't know. I'm gonna go Whittington 1. I really don't love the matchup, and I definitely don't love Jimmy G being his quarterback. But I'm gonna go Whittington 1. Tanner McKee officially starting for Philly. I know we didn't talk about him either as a punt quarterback. I do think he can play, by the way, but he's 5,000 on DraftKings, which we didn't get any of the like. How the hell are Tanner McKee and Trey Lance 4,700 and 5,000? We didn't get any of the fun cheap quarterbacks. But like I said, I don't think it would be crazy to play Tanner McKee with like Johnny Wilson or something on this slate. I don't. In terms of these wide receivers, Whittington is the standout for me. I think maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment. I do think Kadero Hodge is like, if Darnell Mooney were 3,000 on this slate, he'd be mega owned, like crazy high owned. And I'm not saying Kadero Hodge is as good as Darnell Mooney, but it's going to be the same role as Darnell Mooney. So I think give me Kadero Hodge second, and then give me woof. Man, it is bad looking at this list. It's really, really bad.
We have the same top two, so we're definitely leading people astray. If we're agreeing on a week 18 favorite cheap wide receivers,
we definitely are. You know what? I'm gonna put Matt Collins third and leave it at that. There's my top 3.
All right.
But I think that tells you about these punt wide receivers are maybe not as good as we were hoping.
They're gross. They're gross.
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad. So to your point, I'm going to be moving up a tier. So let's do that really quickly at wide receiver. You move up a tier. Where are we going at wide receiver? This could be flag plant. This could be whatever, right? Who is your actual favorite non-punt wide receiver play?
Probably Mike Evans. I'm a sucker for that narrative. Just the Baker saying he's going to get that record. If we win this game, he's going to get that record. They're probably going to win this game. And even though it is like it's only 85-5, like I still think most likely if you're getting to 85, you're probably getting to 100. Like I don't think they're intentionally going to, stop him at 85. So I think probably against the Saints, it would be Mike Evans at 8,000 as my favorite overall wide receiver. I really like Downs again. Downs getting much lower ownership, only 5,300, and he's done well in the past with Joe Flacco. So I'd put him probably next in line. I really love Terry McLaurin, so I guess I've talked about, like, that's my favorite stack of the slate. But I think Terry McLaurin, you can play him as a one-off. I prefer it in the stack, but I'd have to include Terry McLaurin in any conversation about my favorite wide receivers on the slate. Drake London, obviously.
Yep.
Who else do you got?
Mine is Downs. So just to reiterate, you nailed the same list for me. I'll toss Brian Thomas Jr. into that conversation, but it's Josh Downs. This just feels like peak. Like, what are we doing here? We've been playing Josh Downs as mega chalk. Every time Joe Flacco starts, we're like, well, Josh Downs week, right? And now it is Josh Downs against the Jaguars is when we're going to back off Josh Downs, all because Michael Pittman had a good game last week. Like, no, thank you, sir. I still believe. I think he's awesome. I think that game is going to go bonkers. And like I said, Joe Flacco is the starting quarterback, and we're gonna do Nico Remigio with Carson Wentz against the Broncos, and not Josh Downs against the Jaguars with Joe Flacco at quarterback. Like, I feel like we're galaxy braining it a little bit. So Josh Downs is my guy. Let's do a running back, and then anything, like if there's any other play, it could be a quarterback, whatever. But let's do a running. I know we're going long. Week 18 is a weird beast. I want to make sure that people get a little flavor of each spot. Do you have a running back that's your favorite today?
Bijan's my favorite running back. So all my favorites are like pay up options. So then I'm going to be basically playing the best pay ups, I think, and then just mixing and matching with the cheap values that I don't feel as good about.
Makes a ton of sense. I'm gonna go. Bijan's definitely right there with me, so I'll co-sign Bijan. I'm gonna go a little more off the board at the running back position, and I'm cheating, okay, because I'm gonna give two, but they're both in the same game and they're both in the afternoon, so you get to decide. J.K. Dobbins, Alexander Mattison, both in the same game. Nobody cares about that game. Both teams are going to be playing to win for weird, different reasons, but I think that game's got some fireworks to it. Chargers and Raiders. We didn't talk a lot about Brock Bowers, but he's obviously the premier tight end play of the slate. But I think both running backs in that game are awesome, like really awesome, and nobody wants to play them because they're not the shiny. Those are not week 18 fun plays, right? J.K. Dobbins, Mike Evans. Like, what's the difference? Mike Evans is a lot sexier than J.K. Dobbins. So one more flag plant, right? We gave our favorite plays there. Give me one more Week 18 fun play that you're playing a lot that's going to have a big game.
I mean, can I just say the Jaden Terry stack? Just my favorite stack of the slate. That is my flag plant. That is the one that I think is going to win the slate, is Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin.
I love that. You are a son of a bitch. That's 2 weeks in a row.
Somebody warned you earlier to not let me go first.
Somebody
reminded you.
2 weeks in a row. Last week, Evans was easily my flag plant. I let you go first, and you took Evans, and I backed myself into a god awful flag plant. I'm about to do it again, I think. But I already gave Josh Downs. We did. You just did Daniels, McClaren. We've hit a lot of all this stuff. I'll say the one guy that we haven't hit that I really, really like is Brian Thomas Jr. So in that game, it's just like, this dude's a superstar. He's a superstar. Like, I know he's going to be owned. I know it's not like crazy galaxy brain, but like I'm going to have plenty of other, right? If I'm playing Madison, if I'm playing Dobbins, if I'm playing whoever, if I'm playing Daniels to McLaurin, I can play Brian Thomas Jr. alongside my Josh Downs. He's still too cheap. He's just a stone cold smash. The Colts have quit on defense because their quarterback subbed himself out of a game and they hate him now. So Brian Thomas Jr. Let's do it. Let's bring in crunch time and we can wrap this thing up and lead you guys up to lock. All right, guys. I'm tired. I've talked about Nico Remigio And Tyrell Shavers, I wasted hours of my life looking up and writing about Tyrell Shavers and thinking about Tyrell Shavers, and the Bills aren't even thinking about Tyrell Shavers. Please, God, get us down to some sane. I do this every week, Chief. I always say, like, will you bring us back home, like, to get us to a logical, and then you recommend the Dolphins every single week.
I do not recommend the Dolphins every week. That was a 2 to 3 week stretch, and that ended when Tua. When Huntley forgot how to play football after 2 weeks, so we're done with the Dolphins.
What do you got? But what do you got? What's your favorite Week 18 strategy?
What have I done every week so far? It's paid off, like legitimately. There's one thing I've done every week. It's paid off every week, and nobody's talking about it today. Who's playing the Jacksonville Jaguars? It's the freaking Indianapolis Colts.
Love it.
Like it's very simple for me. Like I like Downs, I like Pittman, I like JT. Like secretly, JT's been like destroying the slate the last couple of weeks, and nobody's paying attention. So I'm probably going to be stacking the Colts a little bit. Now, let me just make this clear. I think there's a clear different path to winning between the two sites today, because this Detroit Minnesota game on FanDuel is like everybody's favorite. This might be the first day, if you're in first place after the first game's in, like just close your computer, because you're probably not going to win.
Yeah.
Detroit Minnesota is probably bringing up the rear. And I don't know if people are going to be willing to actually go all in on this game. I'm saying like 4 pieces, the 4 to 5 pieces. I don't think people are going to be willing to do that. And I think it's absolutely plausible that you can. But outside of that game, especially on DK, really like the Colts. I love the fact that Tampa Bay and Atlanta are playing at the same time. So I feel like Tampa Bay, the Baker to Mike Evans connection will continue to resume. And then last but not least, and I know my flag plan is Indianapolis offense. Let me make that clear. Sorry, could you ask me a specific question? Flag plan is the Indianapolis offense, including JT, not just the passing game.
Yep.
But like in terms of playoffs and incentives, like the Bucs got to win this game. Like they have to win. If they don't win, they don't go to the playoffs, and they get the freaking Saints. So I'm all for them piling it on. I don't care if they score 40 in the first half. Just throw Mike Evans everything, and Baker, throw for 303, and I think we'll all feel good about it.
I agree. Mr. Wessels, perfect segue, says beer is in the house. Welcome to Week 18. We might all need some beer to get through this this chaotic slate. So you're the.
Can I bring up one other thing that's like as close to Mike Evans as we could, and I promise I'm going to shut up. Like secretly, Denver's like got to win today, but Cortland Sutton and Mike Evans are in the same boat. They both have about the same amount of yards for incentives. Yep. And I've been playing Cortland Sutton all year too. Like the Chiefs have no intention of winning this game. They're rolling out Carson Wentz, and I'm not saying they're not going to compete. I'm just saying, like, look, they're not that serious about this game. On the other side of that game, DeAndre Hopkins has got some interesting incentives, like 6 catches, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. They're all like different. So, like, oddly enough, I think that game is very interesting. All right, I'm done now, I promise.
I will just say, Beer, I hope you're not flag planting DeAndre Hopkins because of his if DeAndre, I have as good of a chance of getting 140 yards in a game today as DeAndre Hopkins does.
No, but his are multiple though. It's not just that. Like he can catch a touchdown, catch like 6 passes. Like they're all like 150 or another 150. Like when I was looking through, I was like, interesting. Like he doesn't have to go nuclear. He just needs 6 catches and a touchdown, and that's an extra 300K.
Who doesn't want it? I'm trying to win 300K today. That would be.
Exactly. I got to hit my incentives for the year.
Yeah. What are
Beer, I love you.
Incentives?
You got to hit your incentives.
We need Beer's incentives.
Got to win that Millie Maker to hit my incentives for the year. So that's the goal today. But to flag plant DeAndre Hopkins, we're starting off with a bang here.
What do you got, Beer?
I mean, this is an interesting. I think I'm intrigued by the Rams cheap receivers. That's where I'm really, trying to mix and match. I love Jordan Whittington. Maybe that's my preseason bias, and this kid just looks like he can play. Atwell. That spot to me very, very intriguing. That whole game. Gino with his incentives, JSN too cheap, Charbonnet seemingly going overlooked. I think there's a ton of ways to play that game, even in a meaningless game. It's still division rivals. So Rams, Seahawks, I really like today.
Love it. Brit?
Sorry, Neil. I know you liked Mr. Bijan Robinson and Mike Evans, but I got Bucky over Bijan straight up. I got Brian Thomas over Mike Evans straight up.
Love it.
Oh boy, I'm on Brit's team. That's been the more winning side. When I end up aligning with when Neil and I agree, or when I get off the beaten path. Bad.
My guys still have a lot of ownership, but I mean, I'm on those guys straight up today. And don't bet Mike Evans overs anymore. It's like 172 yards. Don't bet the over on that right now.
What did you get? I assume you already hit the Evans.
It was opened at 87.5.
Unbelievable. Greatest lock of all time. Evans getting over 87.5. Knock on wood, obviously. But anything else, Britt, before we get on here? You got any other winners that you doled out to the people?
We're like 15 minutes behind, so I'm going to kick you out of here.
Yes, please do. Sorry for running over. It's week 18. We love you guys. These guys got you all the way up until lock, and enjoy week 18. Go Josh Downs, Bucky Irving, and all those fun guys. Cheers. See you guys. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks to Tim. Thanks to TJ for doing the first show. Thanks to those two guys for doing this show. We're here. Mr. OG Beer Makers fan. Long time no see, buddy. I don't know if I've done a show with you or seen you. Obviously, I've watched the videos and things, but since like a RotoGrinders party many years ago. What's up, dude?
I'm good, man. Week 18. You never know who you're going to get in the lineup. So here we are, the three of us together. So good to see you here, Chief. It's been a while, my man.
My guy.
Show with you. So we're ready to rock. We're ready to crunch. Let's get these lineups set here. We've only got about 29 minutes. Since
let's.
Eric wanted to hog all of our time, so we got to crunch a lot.
We can all do our best micro machines of voice to speed up our talking as fast as possible. All right, I can't really do that. All right, let's just jump right into this, guys. TJ, bring up the screen share. I got SimLabs pulled up. We can take a look at some ownerships, optimals, all that sort of fun stuff today. I don't know who wants to talk. I guess I'll just handle cash, and you guys can give me some thoughts on it real quick. FanDuel cash quarterbacks, you're probably looking at a Sam Darnold, a Jared Goff, somebody from that Minnesota game. You're going to want to get a bunch of pieces from that game. DraftKings a little different. You're probably going to be on Dobbs from San Francisco. He's 4K. He makes everything else work in your lineup. If you want to go a little higher, you can go to like a Flacco, a Kyler Murray, a Baker. I just don't think those are very optimal for cash today. The Dobbs lineup to me is the way to go. It just lets you basically get everything else into your lineup, the skill position players you want that are going to score. There's enough cheap running backs to make it work. So real quick, that's my cash thoughts. Will, I'm going to throw it to you for tournaments. I know you mentioned that Colts offense. I like Brian Thomas. Let's start there in that game. Anything else you want to expand on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as of right now, I've got Brian Thomas, Downs, and Flacco in my main team. Like that's kind of where I'm planting. That is going to open it up for me to do some other things with some of these skill position guys. So yeah, I mean, I think those are the main. I'm fine with Pittman. I'm fine with Mac Jones even, but I think Flacco, JT, and one of these receivers, man, is a great tournament target with Thomas on the other side.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. You can do Mac Jones and Thomas, and then run it back with a JT or one of the receivers too. I think there's a lot of ways to make teams from that. Beer, do you have any thoughts on that game? And then what else would you be looking at today?
Pretty much aligned with you guys quarterback-wise. I mean, Dobbs obviously stands out as a great value. I think Baker, if you're spending, they need a win. He's put up some huge numbers, has broken the slate. Love the Indianapolis call, and it's not just the passing game. And don't forget about Alec Pierce. I don't know if Chief's going to give him some love as well, but he's clicked with Flacco as well. But I do think Mac Jones, interesting on the other side. That game, not a lot of defense going to be played there. Easy pairing with Brian Thomas, plenty of run back. So that game for sure is a target of mine.
Yeah, Jones, our current optimal minus projection, which is basically the guys you want to look at for tournaments at the quarterback position. And I just bet, as Chief was talking on the intro, I bet the over on that game. It was 45.5. Let's get some points indoors in that one with how bad both of those defenses defenses have been playing. What are you guys' thoughts, right? Our RotoGrinders projections. Who's got a Baker Mayfield thought? Highest projected ownership, but worst optimal ownership percentage. What do we do with this game today? Beer, I'm going to throw it to you first. How are you handling Baker? It seems like Baker to Evans. Would you play that as a stack? Would you go to McMillan? Would you try to get Bucky into there? How would you do something with Baker if this actually holds true and he is basically the least optimal quarterback according to our projections right now?
Yeah, that's what makes it tough. He's definitely in a good spot, but not projecting well as far as the plus minus in the SimLabs. So if I'm playing it and I do have a few lineups, it's mainly an onslaught with this Tampa Bay team. I mean, I want to get as many pieces as possible. The concern is they get up big, they start sitting people, they know they got things locked down. So that's kind of what you're battling against. But you got to love the matchup here with this New Orleans defense. So an onslaught for me. Obviously, we like Mike Evans. McMillan has been a touchdown maker. Bucky's in play. You could even go with the cheap tight end in Durham there. So a lot of ways that you can stack them, but my onslaught is the favorite.
Would you run that back if you have like 3 or 4 Tampa Bay players? Are you running it back with anyone from New Orleans?
I mean, there's a couple intriguing pieces, but I don't think you really have to. This could just be they blow New Orleans out of the water. So, CEH kind of popping. Maybe he gets some run. Juwan Johnson as a cheap kind of salary saver to eat up some of that cost. So I don't think it's necessary, but those would be the 2 guys I'd be looking at.
All right, then Will, what are you doing with Baker? Anyone else up towards the top? How are you handling that onslaughts? And then are you taking anyone back from New Orleans?
So not really taking a whole lot of guys from New Orleans. Like I did actually take Spencer Rattler over 193.5 passing yards, I think.
The rush yards is a good one too, over 13.5. Go get that.
Yeah. Thank you, Britt. But I don't know, where all the production is going to come from. I do think, they will air it out some, just kind of let him loose. If I will say my kind of strategy, I'm kind of playing more onslaught strategy today. So if I'm playing Baker and Evans, I'm probably playing Bucky too, if that makes any sense. Like, because they got to win. I think they just run away with it. And maybe you get Baker and Evans, to connect kind of early, and then Bucky just hammers them late. He could have 10 fantasy points at halftime and finish with 25, depending on how this thing breaks out. So I this game in general. Not to overlook Jalen McMillan either. He's had his fair share of fantasy scoring also. Definitely think you filter him in.
And then, Beer, real quick, I want to ask you on Kyler Murray coming in as one of the more optimal quarterbacks today. He has incentives in the rushing department, but he should get a full game. They're home favorites against the San Francisco defense, probably sitting some players, a weaker offense too, maybe some shorter fields for some touchdowns. Who would you be pairing him with today? And those rushing incentives, that's how he basically has to get 50 and a touchdown on the ground to pretty much get there through the air as well.
Yeah, there's some intrigue here. We know Michael Carter going to be very popular. I do like Michael Carter, but this passing attack, it's seemingly, I want to say, overlooked. He's going to have some ownership up there, as we see, around 10%. But, I'd be either stacking him with Carter to be a little bit different if you wanted to play Carter a different way, or obviously it's Harrison and or McBride, in a double stack. And plenty of ways to bring it back with San Francisco. I mean, you got Garendo kind of going overlooked. Jennings, I absolutely love Ricky Pearsall this week. He's only 4,100. So this is a stack that I am on this week with Kyler Murray. Don't have to include Carter. Could be a way to kind of get off of some of that chalk and just concentrate on the passing game. And then each level, you have different pieces or even 2 pieces that you could bring it back with the San Francisco side.
All right, Will, let's go to running back. Sorry, guys, we have to we're a little short on time today, so we're just going to try to go through as fast as possible. Running back, I've got my take is Bucky over Bijan, maybe even straight up today. You get a significant salary savings of $800 on DraftKings today. Will, you got a favorite between those two? Is there one you want to put a flag on? I guess with the salary savings, I'm on Bucky over Bijan today. I just think there's if Bucky has 2 or 3, if Bucky's having a big game, maybe the Falcons don't play Bijan in the fourth quarter, right? If the Buccaneers are blowing them out, that's kind of something where if that is happening, maybe Bucky already has his. That's one of my sort of big brain, galaxy brain, as they like to say, thoughts on the day today.
Yeah, I'm probably Bucky over Bijan also, but I really like JT today. I'm kind of sold on this Indianapolis offense, so JT kind of really fits the build for me in terms of how I want to approach this slate. I will say I'm going to go back to the cheap because I know we mentioned Michael Carter. I'm going to ask you guys a question that, like, what are you guys' thoughts on Corum versus Carter? Because I mean, I feel like it's similar enough. Like, I think Corum's going to get pretty much all the work today, but I could be wrong.
It's a $900 difference.
No, I get it, but we're also getting like a big ownership gap. Like, I mean, that's really my question. I like Corum quite a bit today. What are you guys' thoughts?
You think they're going to pop if it's 3rd and 1, or they're at the goal line? Is Carter getting that goal line carry today, Beer?
Well, Kyler has the 2 touchdown incentive as well, so that's part of the worry with Carter is does Kyler be like, nope, I'm getting mine, I'm getting my incentive. So you love the pass catching upside with Carter. He's been very involved in the passing game, even with some of the other guys in that lineup. Corum, I'm torn on, Chief. I could see them saying, okay, he's our Kyron Williams this week. I could also see them, he's important to us moving forward. So are they going to give him that full workload, or do they value him as a playoff piece? We don't see him a ton on the field, but he is the clear backup to Kyron Williams. So that one, I have some. I'm not overly excited about it. More so in a game stack. Like I mentioned, I really like that game. But that one definitely is Corum could break the slate. He could end up definitely disappointing. My guy, Ray Davis, does he get all the run for Buffalo? That's one that I've been kind of debating.
What about
one thing important to mention with the Corum Carter conversation is Corum is actually cheaper than Carter on FanDuel, where you don't even get the point per reception stuff with Carter. So maybe Corum on FanDuel, Carter on DK kind of thing. And apologies if you guys already brought it up, but I've just been hammering it home all week. So I do want to mention Will Shipley is only 41 on FanDuel.
I was just going to bring that up to Beer. So what are we doing with Will Shipley? This is the guy. The Eagles have 2 running backs active. Oh my God, I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. Basically, Gainwell. So he's Saquon's backup. Probably not going to play like more than a half, I would think. And I think you could see him out after a couple of drives. What are we doing with Shipley coming back from concussion? I mean, if this guy gets 3/4 worth of work at his price tag today, Beer, you gotta like it, but then you also have the 3rd string quarterback without any starting with a horrible receiving crew. How are you balancing all that?
I haven't gotten any Philadelphia. Gainwell, I kind of put in the same category as Corum. Like, do they value this guy enough that we don't need to run him out there, which should lead you to Will Shipley? But I just haven't gotten there. And the main thing is Tanner McKee. Yes, he looked good last week, but who is he throwing to? I'm not very excited about the spot, this game in general. So if anything, I think the Giants defense is one that I want to play, maybe a little Tyrone Tracy in there, but I mostly avoided this Philadelphia situation. If it burns me, so be it, but I haven't landed on any Shipley yet. I get the intrigue. He's cheap. If he's going to get a ton of work at this price, he can pay it off. He's a good pass catcher, but I haven't gotten there myself.
Will, I'm going to get your Shipley thoughts in just a second. I want to talk cash games real quick. I didn't hit it for running back on both sites. Some of my thoughts. If you are going to use Shipley, he's best played on FanDuel, 4,100. You're probably going to want to get Gibbs or Bijan or Bucky. I think Gibbs on FanDuel is probably a must play at the running back position. I like him over everybody over there. You've got Corum on both sites. I think you can play him. You've got Carter on DraftKings. And then you're playing one of Gibbs, Bijan, or Bucky. You're probably playing 1 or 2 of Corum and Michael Carter, and then you've got Shipley on FanDuel as well, as basically how my cash games are sort of rolling out. So speaking of Shipley, Will, let's throw that to you. What are your thoughts on him? To me, just a little bit better of a play on FanDuel where he's so cheap. He lets you get the Justin Jeffersons, the Brian Thomases, the Sam Darnolds, the Jahmyr Gibbs into your lineup.
I mean, honestly, I like him on both sides. Anytime, I mean, we don't usually get this many cheap running backs at one time. So I think in single entry, he's not my primary. Anything, I think, within 3 to 5 lineups, I think you have him in at least one, right? Like, you just can't. One of these cheap running backs should get the job done today if you pair them right. And so that's kind of my strategy. Pairing Corum, pairing Carter, trying to pair them up with at least one big gun that I feel like is going to get it done for us. And I don't really care if it's Bijan, Bucky, or JT. all three of those guys could actually get it done. It's just which one of them outscores the other one by enough for us to take it down. That's kind of how I'm viewing the top versus the bottom.
All right, Beer, I hope you can see my screen here. I've got sub 10% owned running backs pulled up. Give me your favorite one from this list that could end up on a Millionaire Maker winning line.
Zach Charbonnet. I love him today. No Kenneth Walker. I mentioned that game, and he's, a do-it-all back for this team. I love the passing game there as well, but I think Charbonnet really going overlooked here. Ownership, a little more, slightly ahead of the optimal percentage there, but Charbonnet, the guy I really like out of this list. A little bit of Rico Dowdle, not a ton there. And the rest of this list, I don't have a ton of exposure to looking at it. A little bit of Ray Davis here. But outside of that, I'm mostly in the Bijan Bucky camp. I love Jonathan Taylor. Charbonnet is definitely a big part of my builds. And then down in the cheap seats with Ray Davis and Michael Carter.
Yeah, Pollard might be mine in here. Chief, you got a favorite from these sub 10% on running backs?
Yeah, I like Pollard quite a bit. I mean, he's another incentive play. I think he needs 80.
2 tutties. That's the tough part.
Yeah. But hey, listen, that's where all the fantasy value is. I mean, if he goes for 85 and 2, I think we're feeling pretty good if he scores 20 or more fantasy points. So I like him. But I agree with Beer on Charbonnet. Like, pretty much going to own the backfield today. Has extreme pass catching ability. He could catch 6 passes today. So I like him quite a bit as well. And he's really not getting any ownership, I think, because of all these cheap plays. All
right. Beer, I'll start wide receiver off with you. Mike, everyone in the world knows Mike Evans needs 5 receptions, 85 yards for $3 million. That's a nice incentive. I would expect him to get that. But if that's all he gets, that's not going to cut it at his ownership. And that's kind of shown here by the optimal minus projection. His line is ballooned up to over 100 yards at some sports books for the over-under. What are you doing with him? My take at the beginning of this, I want Brian Thomas Jr. straight up over Evans. I get some salary savings. I might even have a higher ceiling with that as well today.
Yeah, I love Brian Thomas. Just continues to get it done. To me, the best rookie wide receiver this season, and right there with Malik Neighbors. But I do like Brian Thomas. I'm playing a little bit of Evans, mostly in stacks, but don't forget about McMillan, who's a lot cheaper and again has been a touchdown maker. They seem to design plays for this guy, so he's one of my favorites. And I mentioned Charbonnet. I really like JSN a ton as well. He seems underpriced at 6,100. So those are some of my favorite wide receivers, along with Ricky Pearsall. Just way too cheap. Will be lower owned than a Juwan Jennings. I get the narrative, Jennings and Dobbs, the old shower narrative, but Pearsall to me one of the better values. And then again, those Rams with Jordan Whittington being my favorite at 3,300.
Yeah. Chief, what are you doing at wide receiver today? Do you have a favorite at the top of the ownership? From doing my years of the Millionaire Maker article, you generally want to fade. Normally 2 of the 3 highest owned wide receivers end up failing, but that's generally when we have crappy wide receivers up towards the top. These are all pretty good players today because we have the salary to be able to get to them. Is there one of Evans, Sutton, Neighbors, Thomas you'd want to be overweight on today?
I think maybe I'm on an island, man. I do think it's Mike Evans. Here's the deal. He's got to get this incentive, but he's going for another 1,000-yard seat. I think this would be 11 or 12 consecutive, I think, this year. And if Chris Godwin was there, I may feel a little differently. If they didn't have to win this game, I might feel a little differently. Now, if they're up 35-0 in the third, do they trot him out there in the fourth? I doubt it. But if they're up 35-0 in the third, I have to assume he's caught one of those touchdowns and may even have 100+ yards. So, look, his line on the sports books is 100 for a reason or somewhere near there. They're expecting him to get the ball. I'm expecting him to get the ball. If he has 5 for 100 and a touchdown, that's still 20+ fantasy points. It's not going to burn you if he finishes the day with 22. That might not be the most, but that's going to be perfectly fine if everybody else does what you need them to do. We live in a world of a salary cap, and so we're hoping some of these cheaper guys pull some big scores for us also, just in case he doesn't go nuts for 30. But if you look at what they've done the past few weeks, the past 3 weeks, at Dallas, he didn't do anything, but he had 30 against Carolina, 39 against the Chargers, 28 against Carolina. So I'm expecting him to get it done against against the Saints, who are just dead.
Yeah, a couple guys I like. Let me give you a cash look real quick from my eyes on something you're doing on DraftKings. You're probably paying up for one of like a Brian Thomas or a Mike Evans. You're probably have at least one or two of these mid 5 to 6K wide receivers like a Juwan Jennings, like a Michael Pittman. You can even get up to a Drake London, who without Darnell Mooney should get absolutely peppered with targets today. He's a little bit more expensive. And I know Beer likes the Jordan Winningtons, the Ricky Pearsalls in the lower end. You can even look at those sort of on FanDuel as well. I know Whittington's 4,200 on FanDuel. Even though you're probably playing Whittington for PPR, it's very hard to overlook a $4,200 player who has the ability to get multiple targets, a reasonable amount of yards, maybe a touchdown, something like that. So I do like him on FanDuel. You're probably going to get Justin Jefferson in there. You can get a Mike Evans or a Brian Thomas in there as well. Trying to get as many pieces on FanDuel of that Minnesota game is possible today. I'm staring at Justin Jefferson on my cash team personally. Anyone else? Beer, give me, you mentioned a couple. I always like to scroll down to these 5% owned or less wide receivers. Is there anybody, your boy Pearsall's in there? Anyone else standing out to you? Maybe a Keenan Allen at 2%. Whittington's down here too, even though he's cheap. You don't necessarily need him today. So if you want to play him, I think he'd probably be a little higher than 2% owned because there is some steam on him today. Anyone else standing out to you that's cheap or lower?
Mainly the guys I mentioned, Pearsall, Whittington, McMillan, I think is way too cheap. I don't understand that, or way too low owned, I should say. I don't understand that.
He'll be higher.
So those are my three, but Pearsall really stands out at 4,100.
Chief, you got anything?
Not much outside of that. I mean, in terms of the cheap guys, I mean, I think you filter through them all. It's just one of those weeks where I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't know which one of these cheap guys is going to go nuts.
I don't think we need to. There's too many good players. I think Neil said he was doing the show with Scott Barrett, and like the winners last year just played the good plays, right? You don't have to. There's enough good players today. You don't have to mess around trying to think which fifth string wide receiver is going to get elevated and catch the touchdown today. I don't think that's really needed.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this, if I had two receivers I'm playing today for sure, it's Brian Thomas Jr. and it's Downs. Like those are my all in. If I was going all in, those would be my two.
Thomas is down. I like Pittman a little bit too, but I can for sure one of the Colts receivers is going to have a good day. It's just which one is it going to be? I like Pittman on that one. All right, let me pay some bills real quick. RotoGrinders Combo Lite. The holiday season brings us some huge DFS contests for NBA and NFL. We want you to have a massive holiday takedown. We're taking $10 off your first month of Combo Lite. You can get access to the SimLabs. That's right here, and content from some of your favorite analysts for just $19.99. That is pretty cheap. Make sure to check out RotoGrinders Combo Lite. If you haven't signed up for Splash Sports, you can still do that. You can use promo code ROTO10. When you play $100 in quick picks, you'll get another $50. So a nice little bonus from Splash. And if you want the props and pick'em package, you can get expert picks from all your favorite sites with props and pick'em. Our elite sports betting and fantasy pick'em package features bets and analysis from your favorite RotoGrinders experts. We're right here. All three of us are on there sometimes. Props and pick'em also includes tools and data powered by our hardworking projections team. Don't make a bet without it. Go check that out in the props and pick'em package. Beer, tight end. It's Brock Bowers. It's Trey McBride. It's everybody else. We did get we got Hunter Henry out, which might shoot up Austin Hooper way up the ownership ranks as we're just searching for anything here. What are you liking? You know, I see Brenton Strange is the third highest owned. I mean, has he caught a pass in like 3 weeks? No. We've got Ertz has some incentives. He's got to get like 2 touchdowns and a bunch of yards or receptions. Pretty unlikely, but he's 4K. He's been involved. Washington's going to be going all out. That's the latest news on there. You got cheap tight ends and a Hendershot, the third string tight end, who's probably going to play quite a bit today. What are we doing outside of Bowers and McBride? And do you have a favorite between those two?
I'm kind of torn between those two. So what I've done, just mix and match between them. So I probably have a little bit more McBride just because I like that game and the stacks there, but I do have some Bowers. As far as the other guys, the main guys I've used, Zach Ertz, you mentioned with the incentives. I'm not playing all of these incentives we're hearing about, but he's looked good. Basically the second target in that offense. They're expected to go all out here. We'll see, but he stands out to me. Chigakonkwo, a guy that has been questionable all week, wasn't sure if he was going to play or not. has been good with Rudolph. I know we're going to get a mix here of Levis and Rudolph, but he's really elevated, become one of the primary targets in that offense. So I like him in the mid-range. And then I mentioned Payne Durham as a guy, mainly as part of Tampa Bay stacks, really the only way that I'm playing him. But that's basically my tight end core. The two expensive guys, everyone's going to be playing some Ertz at 4K, a little bit cheaper with a Okonkwo, and then down to Durham as my cheapest. I'm not going to the Peyton Hendershots, Austin Hoopers of the world. I just haven't landed there.
Yeah, maybe Austin Hooper, either of the Saints tight ends are probably like, it's a really ugly, for a while during the season, tight end was really good, and it's really ugly as we close out the season. Chief, real quick, your thoughts at tight end. We'll take a couple of questions. We're running a little late here.
Trey McBride and Brock Bowers. Like, I've got enough money to play either one of them, so that's what I'm doing. Currently, I have McBride for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody's playing. Brock Bowers, I don't know. They're both going to get a lot of targets. Maybe McBride has a little bit more, even though you might not think so based on the season, maybe a little bit more end zone opportunities today. All right, we'll try to take a couple of questions here. Let's see what we can get here. Let's see. Anyone on Pitts at tight end today with no Darnell Mooney? Just, I don't know. Probably not, right?
Nope.
I'm not. I'm not. I get the appeal, but I'm not going there.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that either. Let's see here. FanDuel Cash, Brian Thomas Jr., Jamison Williams with Shipley, or Evans, Whittington, and Blake Corum. I'd probably take the first one. I want as many pieces of that Detroit game. I get Brian Thomas Jr., Jamison Williams, and Shipley. That sounds pretty good to me for if we were taking that one. Let's see. Yeah, it's cash game week for week 18. Every week's cash game week for me. But yeah, there are Mr. Pete Overzet loves to rile up the crowds with cash games for week 18. Bowers, this is DraftKings Cash. Bowers and Michael Carter, or Hooper and Bucky Irving. So this is a pretty reasonable swap to make here. I think Bowers, Michael Carter is probably going to be the way, Beer. Would you agree with me?
Yeah, I'm going Bowers Carter there.
Yeah, I think on DraftKings, you probably are playing one of the elite tight ends today on DraftKings. Even on FanDuel, personally, I don't think you can leave a cash game without one of those guys today. Shipley anytime TD. Is that something? Is anybody interested in that? What do we think the odds on that would be? I'm going to pull that up real quick.
I bet you come down, but I would say in the 5-1 range, plus 500.
Oh, it's +1. Best line is +170 on FanDuel. Probably not going to take that one, right? Not going to be taking that
one alone. I do have a long shot first touchdown if we want to get to that.
All right. Johnson tight end Saints with Baker and Irving. Yeah, so that's like I think that's Juwan Johnson or even Foster Moreau, I think, are the reasonable run backs from the Saints today. If you're going to do that, would you play them with Baker and Bucky? Will?
Yeah, I don't mind that. I would go Johnson there.
Well, you think that's okay?
I don't hate him. He's cheap enough for sure.
Anyone on Marvin Mims today? We didn't really talk about him. Just the antithesis. He is the GPP wide receiver. In a nutshell. Very volatile, big games. He's going up against backups today. I know Sutton's the one you want to play. Will, you've been playing him all season. What do you think about Mims?
Mims has been good as long as he can catch a big touchdown, and that's possible today. I'm still going to side with Sutton. I think they've had a good season. No need to not try to get him his incentive today. So I still like Mims. I mean Sutton.
Bijan and Hendershot, or let's see, Corum and McBride. I'd probably do Corum and McBride on that one, right?
I agree.
Yeah, I just the upside of the two top tight ends is almost unmatched to running backs. I know Bijan's better than Blake Corum, right? We all know that, but their volume could be, in theory, very close, right?
Well, I just got my FanDuel lineup completed. This thing looks tasty.
Yeah,
see at the top, fellas.
Yeah, all the FanDuel lineups do look pretty good today. It looks like we're about a minute away from lock. Probably won't have time to get you any more actionable questions. Beer, you got any bets out there for the people? Something they can get in? Anything from the late games you've put up on either in the 6-pack or scores and odds or anything this week?
Love that late game. Posted about Jared Goff's over. That thing is shot through the roof. I got in at 266.5. That's in the 280s. Jefferson, I got in at 90.5. That's up near 100. So I'm glad I locked those in early. I put that in as part of the write-up. I expected those numbers to jump. And a long shot first TD parlay or bet, Kadarius Hodge. I got him at 22-1 earlier. So I don't know if the number's still the same, but that's the long shot first touchdown bet of the day.
Yeah, he's a nice punt in DFS as well. Will, real quick, anything you were looking at? Almost every bet I made. Brian Thomas yards, I think I got it at like 78.5 or 79. Fits around in the low 80s. I would still take the over on that. Everything else, like that Justin Jefferson, I beat you by 1 yard. I got it at 89.5. And everything's just shot up so much this week. Will, you got anything that's still playable?
If you can get it anywhere on any book, you should still be able to get Jefferson at more than 10.5 targets, but that might just be a pick 'em thing. But that's where I started going once the yards started shooting up. I just went to the targets because they're gonna. I expect them to be throwing all day. So that was one that I like. Zach Charbonnet, more than 12.5 rushing attempts. If you can get that one today, I felt we all felt like that was a good one in the prop shop. JT, more than 19 rushing attempts, probably 18.5 certain places. If people haven't been looking, JT's hit I think 30 in one of these games, and I'm expecting them to be in control. So those are just a couple that I can add to the list, but definitely think those guys.
What about Jefferson? So I got Jefferson 6.5 receptions on FanDuel at -132. That's by far the best price. I was probably a little bit better earlier in the day. Would you play that for receptions on a sports book? I think that's pretty reasonable.
Sure, absolutely. In this game, absolutely.
Yeah, the yardage is really spiked up too. I still think he's going over. He had 4 games, 730 yards in Detroit, something like that. What do you think? Are you a Lions fan? Are you still the Packers homer? Beer, what's it like for you up here? Are you torn between where you live and the Packers? What do you want to happen here? You still going with the Packers?
I know my video's jacked up for some reason. Apologies for that. But you see the Green Bay hat. I live in the Detroit area. I am not a Lions fan. A lot of Lions fans panicking today about this game. And what a drop, man, to have 14 wins and you're a 5 seed. That's my issue here with the playoff setup. But should be a fun game. Definitely on FanDuel. Stack that game up. Get some exposure to it through Gibbs, through Jefferson, through the quarterbacks. And I still think those bets are viable. I think Goff goes over 300. I think Jefferson goes over 100. And I love the 6.5 receptions call.
Yeah, all right. That's going to do it for this. Thanks to everyone for doing all the shows earlier today. Someone in chat mentioned thanks for TJ TJ just basically runs everything now behind the scenes here. Congrats. Thanks to him for doing all this early in the morning, all day long. And thanks to all of you for tuning in for all the shows this entire football season. Everyone here at RotoGrinders appreciates it. Don't forget, we will be back for the playoffs. Other than that, for Mr. OG BeerMakersFan, for Will, my prop brother, I'm Brit. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we out ya.